Ready? Okay, great. So we're going to reconvene into open session from closed session. And City Attorney Barrow will make an announcement.
Yes, Mayor. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the City Council went into closed session to have a conference. A conference with its labor negotiators. The City Council gave direction to its labor negotiators. There was no other reportable action taken.
Okay, thank you. So we adjourn closed session and welcome you to the City Council regular meeting for April 16th, 2024. And may we get Mr. Aria Pena to come up and lead the pledge.
Please stand and face the flag and place your right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well done. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. So tell us a little bit about yourself. What school do you go to and what are your favorite subjects?
I go to Pennycamp Elementary. I'm a 5th grader, and some of my favorite subjects are math and reading.
Wow, that's great. Now, you've seen all that construction, right? All that new construction? So don't you wish you were in kindergarten again?
Well, that playground does seem pretty fun. I would love to play on it.
That's great. And who do we have here?
This is Mrs. Wazanki. She's our principal.
That's wonderful. You have a few words to say?
Yeah, no, Aria is no stranger to a microphone. He's a very enthusiastic participant at school. I came to Pennycamp when he was in 3rd grade, and he was one of the warmest, most welcoming students. He's so enthusiastic. He's happy all the time. He's motivated. He participates. And I have a little something that your teacher wrote about you. She says, Ms. Hull, Aria is one of the outstanding leaders in 5th grade at Pennycamp. He is proud to be a member of the 5th grade ambassadors, where he utilizes his outgoing spirit and creative ideas. Aria is a model for student collaboration. He is supportive to classmates and shows respect and kindness to others. So 3 cheers for Aria.
Thank you so much. You know, it's always good to have the principal on your side, right? Great. Well, we want to give you this certificate. It's the City of on behalf of all my colleagues here on City Council, the City of Manhattan Beach and the Manhattan Beach Unified School District recognized Aria Pena from Pennycamp Elementary School for outstanding citizenship in the Manhattan Beach Unified School District.
Thank you so much.
And then Mayor Pro Tem will give you a city pin. Right, and let's get some pictures here with the whole City Council.
Here, you want to announce?
Thank you to Mom and Dad and my loving family.
That's great. Thank you. Here, let's have you get in the middle here.
Should we move chairs, or where do you want to?
We can move the chairs.
You look over towards that mom with the camera?
Mom with the camera.
And much older than your years.
Looks great. All right. 3, 2, 1.
Well done.
Good job.
Okay. Whoops, sorry.
That was amazing.
So for our ceremonial calendar, we are privileged to have in the audience here today the Circle Award for Excellence in Poetry Composition, presentation of certificates of recognition, and why don't you come on down. I'll say the names as you come down. So Lily Boettcher, Gianna Goodman-Bhyat, Bella Rawitz, and Violet Rice. And then Mr. Grove, right?
That's correct.
All right, terrific. Wonderful. So why don't you say a few words about the competition and also your students?
They're actually Shannon Vaughn's students right up here. She's the young lady with the white sweater and the camera. And I'm going to ask her to say something here in a little while. Actually, I don't need her to take awards because we have two young ladies who couldn't make it tonight. But I'd like to introduce these young ladies. Lily is a high school senior, and she wants to thank her left hand for writing her composition, Fish Food, which she will now present.
I didn't know that was going to be read out loud.
We're putting you on the spot.
Unfortunately.
And also, too, I'm married to a left-hander, okay? And I'm continuously reminded of how inferior right-handed people are, so.
Good.
Yeah, so you're in good company.
Mr. Mayor, so am I. I'm married to a
Did you
lefty.
say,
Oh, sorry.
You have a lot of lefty sympathizers.
I sincerely believe I will marry a right-handed person and be superior.
Yeah,
All right. So this is a poem I wrote titled Fish Food. Yeah. Don't touch me. Don't feel my skin tremble beneath your fingertips. Don't notice how weak I am. I breathe in salt like it's my last breath, the cold surrounding stealing all warmth from my already cold body. Don't disobey a woman's dying wish. Let me float amongst the fish, my body being useful for a change, swathed in scales. I can feel their nibbles tearing my flesh. I am loved. They praise me as I am pulled apart. I'm fought over as they vie for my liver. I am wanted here. They embrace me with teeth. They accept me with jaws, and I'm spread throughout the world through the creatures that consume me. Drifting in the sea, there's always someone who wants me here.
And our second awardee this evening is Gianna Goodman-Bhyat.
Gianna.
I practiced this 1,000 times. Gianna Goodman-Bhyat, sorry. So much pressure.
I understand.
I'm nervous.
I get it.
can you tell us a little bit?
Yes, Gianna is a 16-year-old high school student and activist at Mira Costa, and she is the leader of Mira Costa's band book club. Her poem that was anthologized for us this year is in anticipation of the scars you will leave me with. It's really good. And it's featured in Onward, our book of poetry that Bella has right here. That Lily has right here. You know, dementia is a horrible thing, so let's be kind. The next two people are being awarded. One of them is out representing the Mustang track team right now. She's co-captain, Go Mustangs. And her name is Bella Rawitz. She's a senior creative writer who cannot be here because she is running track right now. And her poem is called Narcissism. Lastly, we have Violette Rice, who's no longer attending Mira Costa, but she not only has a poem included here, Seasons of My Universe, but on the cover, she designed the cover work too. And for these awards, would it be possible to have Ms. Vaughn come on down here and accept them for them like they do at the Oscars?
For Marlon Brando, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, there were so many. Yeah. Johnny Depp couldn't be here. He was filming in France.
Mr. Mayor, are there parents of the students?
Yeah, I was going to invite the parents down. Do we have any parents want to come down and join us?
Poetry come down too.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much. And
How are you?
hi, how are you doing?
Good.
Good job. Thanks for coming here. Thanks for coming.
Proud parents.
Great. Okay. So let me start and give the certificate of recognition on behalf of the City Council, along with the Parks and Recreation Department's Older Adults Program. We hereby proudly recognize Lily Boettcher for receiving the 2024 Circle Award for Excellence in Poetry Composition. we'll get you a pin too. And then the same certificate of recognition goes to Gianna, right? See, I'm a quick learner. Great. Well, congratulations to you as well. And then if we can have your teacher come up here and talk a little bit of, well, we already heard about Bella and Violet, okay? So on behalf of the City Council, also for Bella Rawitz, we commend her for receiving the 2024 Circle Award for Excellence.
Wonderful. She thanks you.
Here you go. And also for Violet Rice.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Wait, you're not off the hook. How do you teach these great students? Or
I'm just a guide on the side. They are my little cornucopias of knowledge, and they take creative license and they do all the hard work. And they are already fully cooked when I get them. So I just sort of steer them in the right direction every once in a while. So round of applause for you guys.
Ms. Vaughn is being very humble. My boy Jack had her, and you made a real difference for him, so thank you. I have the microphone, and I'm not giving it back.
photo, however you want to work this out, Mayor Pro Tem? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, one more proclamation. Oh, that's right, yeah. This is, be it resolved that I, Joe Franklin, Mayor of the City of Manhattan Beach, California, on behalf of the City Council and the residents of Manhattan Beach, do hereby proclaim April 2024 as National Poetry Month. So we got that to go along with everything. So we'll give that to you. All right.
Everyone up here.
We got a copy of that.
All right. And everybody else got their pictures?
All right.
Around the world.
See you later. Thanks, Mayor Franklin. Oh, watch the stuff. Watch the stuff.
Wait, this is for the mayor.
Well, I got the.
Oh, you got the cushion? Okay, that one. Musical chairs. So, Mr. Mayor, was that done in conjunction with our older adults poetry?
I don't know.
Or is that just their own thing?
I think it was.
Okay.
We can ask Parks Recreation Director Lehman.
Did you ever do the roll call, by the way? Thank you.
Yes, I missed the roll call. No, did we? No, I'm sorry. Okay.
No, it's okay.
Do the roll call, please.
Councilmember Lesser?
Here.
Councilmember Napolitano?
Here.
Councilmember Montgomery?
Yes,
Mayor
here.
Pro Tem Haworth?
Here.
Mayor Franklin?
Here. Okay, we move on to the approval of the agenda and waiver of full reading of ordinances. So we have a motion to accept that by Mayor Pro Tem Haworth and seconded by Councilmember Montgomery.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, we got, at this point, we have City Council and Community Organization announcements of upcoming events. We have 1 minute.
You see a lot of people here. I'm going to jump up first, all right?
Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council members, City Council officials, Mr. Lee. My name is Bobby Bell. I am the WM Recycling Coach Rep dedicated to Manhattan Beach. I'm here tonight to announce in conjunction with the City of Manhattan Beach, our upcoming compost event. It's going to take place Saturday, May 4th at 10 a.m. at Pollywog Park at the Manhattan Beach Botanical Gardens. That is on the corner of Manhattan Beach and, Peck. At this event, discounted compost bins, worm bins will be available for purchase. And just so everybody knows, they are available year-round by calling 310-830-7100. Once again, 310-830-7100. Everyone have a blessed evening. Thank you.
Operators are standing by.
Thank
Your
you.
Honor, a shout out to Waste Management for their shredding program they had.
Oh, yes.
Saturday, right?
211 cars.
200. So thank you, Bobby, and your company for the paper shredding event this past Saturday. Look for them. Are they every quarter?
The paper shred event?
Yeah.
The paper will do 4 times a year, and it'll be all held at Mira Costa High School, Artesia, and Penn.
Okay, great. You can get 2 boxes of your important documents shredded professionally.
Maybe you're unimportant.
Oh, 3 boxes?
Shred and recycle.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, esteemed members of the City Council. I'm your Cultural Arts Supervisor, Eric Brinkman, and I'm here to invite everybody to our next art exhibition opening this Friday, April 19th from 5 to 7 p.m. This exhibition features the work of 18 Southern California ceramic artists, some of whom have careers spanning over 5 decades. This exhibition, entitled Plus One, hones in on the mentor-mentee dynamic that's propelled ceramic culture for millennia. Each participating artist was tasked with inviting their mentor to contribute a piece to the exhibition as well. The exhibition endeavors to illuminate some Southern California ceramics history and provide an array of entry points into thinking about clay. In addition to the artworks that will be on display, our education space will also be open, which features a free craft geared towards all ages. There will be light refreshments included at the exhibition, and a lot of the artists will be in attendance. So I hope to see everybody on Friday, April 19th from 5 to 7 at the Manhattan Beach Art Center. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Next. If we have some that are waiting, if you wouldn't mind coming down as well. Please.
Hello. Good evening, Mayor and members of the Council. I'm Josh Murray. I'm here on behalf of Manhattan Beach Library. I'd like to invite the adults of the community to learn how to write and publish a book on Tuesday, April 23rd from 6 to 7:15 p.m. Ready to write a memoir but not sure how to start? Putting your finishing touches on your novel but uncertain on how to get it published? Well, then come to the Manhattan Beach Library and learn how to do exactly that. Registration is available on our website, lacountylibrary.org. And I'd like to invite the teens of the community to our teen writing workshop on Tuesday, April 30th from 4 to 5 p.m. Do you love to write? Come share your poem, short story, novel, screenplay, or whatever in a safe and encouraging environment. Learn to give and receive feedback in a helpful way and learn valuable creative writing tips. Registration for this is also available on our website, lacountylibrary.org, and I thank you for your time.
Great. Thank you, Josh.
Good evening, and thank you, Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and City Council members. I'm Latrice McLaughlin. I'm with Connecta Federal Credit Union, and I'm also here tonight representing the Manhattan Beach Chamber of Commerce as the chairman of the board.
Hi, I'm Abby Waddell. I'm also a board member with the Manhattan Beach Chamber, and tomorrow night we are having a very high-end mixer at Grunyon's, and everybody's welcome. It starts at 5:30, goes to 7:30, so you're all welcome to join us at Grunyon's.
Great. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Erin Fiorito. I'm with Torrance Memorial Medical Center, also a member of the Chamber. There is another event that's happening. It's for our young and emerging leaders, and it's our spring kickoff mixer, and that's Thursday, April 17th. Is that correct? Thursday?
Yes.
Okay. Thursday, April 17th, and that's at 5:30 at Palm Realty Boutique on the Roof, right across the street from here. Hope you can join us.
Thank you. And finally, our last announcement is the Chamber is having a power hour, a power lunch and learn on Thursday, April 25th at 11:30 at UNITA in Manhattan Beach across from Gelson's. Since space is limited, we recommend registering on the Chamber's website, manhattanbeachchamber.com. Thank you and have a great evening.
Great. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Michael Butler. We're here on behalf of Mira Costa ASB to announce upcoming events. Friday, April 12th, Drama Tech and Comedy Sports held a comedy sports match at Mira Costa High School. They went against Peninsula High School, and they had a successful match. Tomorrow, on April 17th, we will hold our Mira Costa Spring Athlete Signing Day, which will be our second signing day of the year and include all of the seniors who have committed to college for sports this semester. This will take place at 11:47 in the main gym.
Our next event is on Thursday, April 18th. Costa will hold our annual Costa-Chella during office hours and will include multiple wellness activities and games. These activities will also include prizes, music, and will be performed by various young bands and talents. Our second campus beautification of the school year will take place on Saturday, April 20th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. All of the tools will be provided as well as snack and a water table. This cleanup will include jobs such as picking weeds, throwing away trash, getting rid of dead leaves, cleaning things such as water fountains, and also sweeping and more.
Great. And what was your name?
Trey Bush.
Okay.
And that's open to the public. If any volunteers can come.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Casey Kernigan, and Drama and Tech will hold their spring musical Footloose in the Mira Costa Auditorium on April 26th at 7:30, April 27th at 2 and 7:30, May 2nd at 6:30, May 3rd at 7:30, and May 4th at 2 and 7:30. And then lastly, we have our second Scholar Breakfast coming up on Thursday, April 25th from 7:30 to 8:30 a.m. in the Mustang Mall. There, students who receive nominations from teachers and clubs for outstanding grades and behavior will receive a certificate and a breakfast. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Carol Patterson, Manhattan Beach Boulevard. First of all, I already have my ticket for Footloose, so I will see many of you there. But I'm here to invite you to another amazing theater production at Manhattan Beach Community Church. They played last weekend, Sunday's matinee. They had to put up 3 extra rows of seats to accommodate the crowd that came without pre-ordering tickets. And we do try to fit everybody in that comes. The show is The Drowsy Chaperone. It is a show within a show about the typical musical comedy of the 20s. And it's funny, it's fun, it's frantic, there's lots of dancing. Come and see it. It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 8 o'clock, 2 o'clock. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Carol. Anybody else for community announcements, colleagues?
No community announcements.
Any?
Zoom?
No? Okay.
Anything on Zoom? You're on?
Oh, yeah. Anybody on Zoom for community announcements?
There's no request in Zoom.
Great. Thank you, Martha. Okay, so we move to public comments, and I have to make this announcement. It has come to our attention that people have been disrupting city council meetings in other cities with anti-Semitic and racially based comments through Zoom. Such comments are disruptive and interfere with the people's business and are not within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. I'm instructing the City Council's office to mute any speakers who attempt to disrupt the meeting with anti-Semitic or derogatory comments based upon race, gender, or other protected categories. And also another reminder is that this is public comments, and then each of the items under discussion later on also has public comments. You can only comment at one, not both. Okay, thank you. So first one. Anybody public comments here? And if you're planning to do it, if you can just come up and wait on those chairs down there.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening. I'm Julie Justice McGinnity, here as a representative of Friends of the Senior and Scout Community Center. As you know, we are the nonprofit organization partnering with the city to build a new intergenerational community center on the site of our old Scout House in Live Oak Park. When not in use by the city's older adult program or Scouts, this facility will provide much needed additional meeting space for all community organizations in our city. We did reach out to all the community organizations who had previously rented city facilities and asked them if they would be interested in meeting in the new building. And would they be interested in contributing toward the building of it? Those discussions included Rotary and Kiwanis and Sandpipers, but only Sandpipers had resources dedicated to community development projects and a need for a consistent and well-suited space for their membership meetings of 70 to 80 people. You already know all about Sandpipers and their distinguished history of community service, with members dedicated to the lives of our young people and the needy. They are enthusiastic about making a $50,000 donation to the project and naming the upstairs art room or maker space, which will support creativity and ingenuity and the mental health of our young and old alike. Sandpipers would like to hold 6 meetings per year in the new community center. All of those would be in the evening during the time that the scouting programs have primary use. Our Boy Scout and Girl Scout volunteer leadership have been consulted, and they are supportive of this agreement, which will allow Sandpipers to reserve the community center in advance for up to 6 meetings a year for 10 years at a reduced rental rate. We are seeking your general support for this agreement tonight and request that you direct the City Council to work with Sandpipers to draft the specifics of the agreement. As you know, the Council has previously agreed to a similar arrangement with Beach Cities Health District, and so we appreciate your consideration of this Sandpipers agreement. I'll just quickly say, thanks to all of your ongoing support, we are making great progress. So we have submitted the 95% designed plans to Department of Public Works, and they are now working forward on getting us ready for construction bidding in the fall, and we're going to get this done. And I have 4 seconds. So if you haven't contributed to this project, go to mbcommunitycenter.org and do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
Well timed.
Next, any public comments?
Thank you, Mira, City Council, for having me here. On behalf of the Local 323 Carpenters, my name is Andre Moore. I'm the PAC Committee Chairman, co-chair, which is the Political Action Committee Chairman. I'm here to talk about tax fraud. Tax fraud is April 13th through the 19th. It's a week-long series that we go and we speak and inform individuals about tax fraud and what the importance of it is. Tax fraud, prevalence of construction industry tax fraud has reached crisis level and must be stopped. Western State Carpenters Local 323 and United Brotherhood of Carpenters are taking part in National Tax Fraud Days of Action, a week-long series of events to raise awareness about construction tax fraud. The Tax Fraud Days of Action grew out of widespread outrage about construction industry tax fraud, a range of practices where employers evade their taxes responsibilities in several ways. Often they intentionally misclassify workers as independent contractors or pay workers cash arrangements. As a result, these businesses significantly reduce their income tax and payroll tax responsibilities and defraud communities of much needed tax revenue. As much community, as in the community of continuously facing budget shortfalls, it's more important than ever to crack down on these bad actor employees who stealing from the residents of Manhattan Beach. What is wage theft, you ask? Wage theft happens when workers aren't paid all parts of their wages that they've earned. Other forms of wage theft is not paying legal mandated tax time and a half overtime premium hours for exceeding 40 hours in a week. It's wage theft when any worker, no matter the immigrant status, isn't paid their complete wages. Often wage theft is accompanied by tax fraud and insurance fraud and other crimes. Tax fraud isn't intentional. It's accidentally. It's intentional. It's a business model. Contractors often use crooked subcontractors and labor brokers. But they still hold themselves responsible as joint employees. And workers aren't the only ones who get hurt by it. Wage theft gives cheated contractors a leg up in bidding against law-abiding companies. This means that the legitimate companies and construction workers, they're fairly employed, they lose work. So I'm just here talking about specifically, oftentimes we have to travel 2-3 hours away just to work. You include time on the road and time traveling back, that exceeds more than 12 hours out away from our families. We're working hard taxpayers, and we deserve to work local hires. So we encourage the city of Manhattan Beach to crack down on wage theft and stand tall with this tax fraud. That's all I have to say.
Great. Thank you very much.
Your Honor, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Are you aware of any of that happening in Manhattan Beach? Have you heard of any cases involving wage theft here?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
recently?
Currently and prior to, yes. We do a lot of research in standing tall on cracking down on contractors that are illegitimately doing fraudulent stuff. So we have individuals who go out and we talk to individuals who are on work sites who are stating that they're receiving cash payments. Their father is receiving cash payments. Their uncle upstairs was receiving cash payments, and they're receiving that in lump sums on Fridays in an envelope. And we have documentation that, so there is definitely that's going on here.
I'd like to know that. If you have information, hand it to that guy next to you as a city manager. Thank you very much.
Yes,
Appreciate
you. Thank you.
Okay, next.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem. Good evening, City Council. My name is Ronisha Robertson, and I also would like to talk about the tax fraud. So tax fraud is harming some working families. When employers shift their tax burden onto their employees, employees must then pay their employers' employment taxes out of their pockets, which places a huge financial burden on working families. Also, when employees aren't on the books, they are on the hook if they get sick or injured on the job and cannot work. No health benefits or workers' comp. So this April 13th to the 19th, the Western States Carpenters, Local 323, United Brotherhood of Carpenters, we are taking part in National Tax Fraud Day of Action, a week-long series of events to raise awareness about construction industry tax fraud. The prevalence of construction industry tax fraud has reached a crisis level, and bad actor employees are preying on vulnerable workers. From taking advantage of our immigrant populations to undercutting the competition, these bad actors are defrauding our working families and our communities by doing business that only fattens their wallets. Across all industries, workers and families are losing over $8 billion a year in wage theft. Construction work is dangerous and injuries do happen. Responsible contractors protect their employees by having workers' compensation insurance. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. My name is Lee Williams, and I'm also representing the Southwest Region of Carpenters. I'm here to talk about tax fraud as well. Tax fraud is estimated that construction tax fraud is responsible for cheating communities out of billions of dollars in tax revenue. These billions of dollars of tax revenue that could be used towards buildings and renovating schools, repairing roads, caring for veterans, sheltering the unhoused, and funding the essential public programs. Also, along with tax fraud, they're also doing wage theft and insurance fraud. The construction work is dangerous and injuries happen. Responsible contractors protect their employees by having worker compensation insurance. They shouldn't be punished for having it, but too often they are because of rampant insurance fraud. What is workers' compensation insurance fraud? A growing number of construction companies do not report their full payroll to their workers' compensation insurers in order to illegally lower their premiums. The insurance fraud, regrettably, it does not stop at insurance fraud. Much of the time, insurance fraud is accompanied by tax fraud in construction, which robs our state and federal government of at least $8.4 billion a year.
Thank you. Great. Thank you, Lee. Anybody else?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Michael Jenkins, resident since 1978. I want to thank you for directing staff to prepare that rough order of magnitude for the outdoor dining proposal. I read the staff report, and first I just want to note that I like outdoor dining. Whenever it's offered, I prefer it to indoor dining. I do think it improves the ambiance of Manhattan Beach. But and also let me disclose, I don't live on 10th Street. And I don't live anywhere near any of the proposed outdoor dining. That said, I just think that spending $7.5 to $12.5 million to build out sidewalks to improve outdoor dining for commercial private restaurants is, well, notwithstanding what all these people had to say, not a wise expenditure. I was going to use another word, but I'm just going to say it's not a wise expenditure of our money. You have an aquatic center that we want to build for the benefit of our residents. That's more important. We have a parking structure downtown that may need to be replaced. The staff's report notes that we have a robust $200 million capital improvement plan, which doesn't include this $7.5 to $12.5 million for outdoor dining. Frankly, if I had $7.5 to $12.5 million to spend, I would see if I can leverage that money to provide some workforce housing in this community so that these folks here who have to travel 2 and 3 hours to their jobs could live closer to where they work, right here in Manhattan Beach. That's what I would do with that money. As much as I think outdoor dining is a nice thing, I don't think it's an essential thing, and I really don't think it's a prudent or wise expenditure of funds. So, notwithstanding all the folks who've written you and suggested that they want to eat outdoors more often, I would strongly urge you to abandon this proposal. If you want to send it back to the task force, fine. If you want to send it back with instructions to find a way to enhance outdoor dining without spending any city money, I'm all in favor of that. There's some other communities that are still doing outdoor dining. It may not be as aesthetically pleasing as this proposal, but they're doing it. But I just don't think that we should be spending taxpayer funds on this particular project at this time. I think we should spend the money on projects that have already been prioritized for the city. With that, thank you for your hard work, and I'll conclude my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Anybody else?
Good evening, Council, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem. My name is Peter Kim, Sloopy's, North Manhattan Beach. I have sent an email over, I'm sure you've all read it, regarding my opposition to outdoor dining in North Manhattan Beach for the reasons stated in the email, but basically the bottom line is to decrease the width of Highland by 8 feet, I think is ludicrous. And that's what the proposal is that's on the table. And when we get to the item, I will speak more about it. I've got some stats that came from the city traffic controller that is outrageous as far as the traffic on Highland. And it is, I think it would be detrimental to do something on Highland that would basically, and I know the city clerk is putting up some stats there, but to decrease the size of Highland would be detrimental to the businesses as well as who knows what. So that's all I have to say. I'll talk more about it when the issue comes up. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Kim. Anybody else in chambers? How about Zoom? Martha?
There are no requests on Zoom.
Okay, we'll close public comments. And we'll move on to the consent calendar. Do I have a motion to approve? Motion to approve by Councilmember Napolitano and seconded by Councilmember Lesser.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, we move on to public hearings. And the first one is agenda item number 7, conduct public hearing regarding proposed fees to recover costs related to electric vehicle charging at city facilities. Public Works Director Lee.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of City Council. Tonight, Senior Management Analyst Nicole Petroff will give the presentation.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Nicole Petroff, and I will be presenting information on the proposed fees related to electric vehicle, or EV, charging at city facilities. All right. To start off, since 2013, the city has purchased and installed 32 EV chargers. 28 of them were through various grants. The amount of electricity that is distributed through these chargers on an annual basis is approximately 353,000 kilowatt hours. And the city currently bears 100% of the costs associated with the electricity distributed by these chargers. It is estimated that approximately $99,000 in direct electricity costs are not recovered by the city each year. The EV charging program is not directly supported by fees from those who utilize the service. Therefore, ongoing maintenance and eventual replacement of equipment are supported by general tax revenues. In February of last year, Council directed staff to begin developing fees to recover costs related to EV charging. In July of the same year, the city contracted with Matrix Consulting Group to conduct a fee analysis based on information that was provided by the city. This map identifies the location of the EV chargers at the different city facilities. It's a little small, but you can see they're all around the city in different locations.
East side gets no love. It's okay.
If only they had a council member from this.
There are 3 levels of charging available for EV charging vehicles. There's level 1, 2, and 3. The city utilizes the most common form of public charging equipment, which is level 2. While level 3 provides the quickest charge, it's also the most expensive. As mentioned earlier, the city contracted with Matrix to conduct a fee analysis based on information that was provided by the city, and the following items were considered when developing the fee analysis. The cost breakdown associated with the fee analysis is represented in the table on this slide. The total direct and indirect costs equals $181,976. Based on the calculation conducted, the full cost associated with the city's operation and maintenance of a level 2 charging station is 51 cents per kilowatt hour. Staff surveyed the surrounding cities to determine what rates they were charging. The fees vary, as you'll notice, as each city's rates are developed through its own fee analysis and processes. To compare a city that is charging lower per kilowatt than the city is proposing, the city of Beverly Hills is charging 25 cents per kilowatt hour, but if you look in the additional information column, they also assess a $6 per hour station fee after 2 hours. The city's current infrastructure for 18 of the charging stations has equipment necessary to begin collecting fees immediately. The cost to retrofit the remaining 14 stations is $30,000, and sufficient funding is available to begin retrofitting these stations. If the proposed rate of 51 cents per kilowatt hour were approved, the city would recover $182,000 per year. Public outreach for the public hearing was published in the Beach Reporter on the dates shown above. Additional outreach messaging was placed directly on the EV charger, and information cards were placed at various city facilities. In addition to notifying the public, the city labor groups were informed about this proposed fee. Staff recommends that the City Council adopt Resolution Number 240037, adopting a fee of 51 cents per kilowatt hour effective July 1st, 2024. In summary, besides recovering the direct electricity costs, these fees could be used to maintain the equipment, replace the equipment when it reaches the end of its useful life, and assist with funding the expansion of the city's EV charging program into additional facilities along with locations and improvements to current locations. This concludes my presentations. I will take any questions that you may have.
Great, thank you.
Of course.
Councilmember Lesser?
Thank you for your presentation, Nicole.
Yeah.
A decade ago, when the city introduced these free EV charging stations, there was a policy rationale to encourage more EV drivers, owners, vehicles. And I'm just curious, I didn't see a reference to other cities that might underwrite a portion of the fare today in any of the cities that you surveyed with that policy rationale. In your research, did you find any other cities that have sought to lower the cost in some way based on that same policy objective?
We did not. When we did survey the cities, it was actually quite difficult to find cities that had this information available. So for us, no, we did not.
With regard to grants, it's referenced in the staff report that we were able to pay for the installation of some of the chargers a decade ago through grants.
Correct.
Obviously, there's been the Inflation Reduction Act, and there are U.S. Transportation Department grants, as well as California grants. Wondering to what extent staff has explored that. I know I've had an exchange with the director about that, but to what extent could grants reduce some of our costs such that we might offer a lower rate?
So the city is always looking for grants that are available to us. Lately, the grants that do become available, we do not qualify for based on a number of different reasons, but we are always looking for possible grants and the opportunity to lower the costs.
And last question is, those grants typically apply to the infrastructure itself, the chargers, not to the power itself?
I do not know the answer to that question, but I think based on just some of the grants that we have reviewed, that is correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Great. Thank you.
Of course.
Any other questions, colleagues? No, we'll open up public comments. Thank you. Anybody here? Public comments about item number 7? Seeing none, how about Zoom?
There's no request on Zoom.
Okay, thank you. We'll close public comments. Colleagues, any discussion?
I'll start us off, Your Honor.
Councilmember Montgomery.
I actually was here the first time the staff installed, remember those Phase 1 starters, Bruce, we put in? Because back then we had we leased the electric minis from B&W. We tried a fleet of them for 12 of them for $1 for a year. We needed chargers. And the range of them was very small, maybe 50 miles if you were lucky. But the point was we knew it was coming. And we tried as many out all over the place to see what would happen. And sure enough, we saw the need early on in 2000, was it 7, Bruce, or 9? We installed those, that we needed to get ahead of it. So staff put them installed right below the city hall. You saw those first row chargers. They're still there today. But we saw what was going to happen. We had no idea the boom it would cause of what would happen after that point. But nowhere 10 years later did we think that we'd still be worrying about, paying for charging fees. Not only that, the enforcement to get cars to move after 2, 3, 4 hours, or else they camp out all night long, which wasn't the intention. The intention was to handle what we knew was there, and then maybe a few more. And then in time, we'd go back to fee-based charging. If you go to the mall, it's not free to charge at the mall, folks. They may give you, 30 minutes or an hour, and they start charging you. You go to Connecticut, they give you an hour, and they start charging you from $0 to $5 an hour. That's how it works. Everywhere you go, you get some free minutes, and then they start charging you, which is exactly our point here. You saw the cost of the city. We can't keep subsidizing the free part of it. These are chipping into what money we have to pay for the people that actually drive. I'm a hybrid user. I get it. I pay. Whatever that number is, charge here, charge at home, at the discount rate after 8 o'clock, it drops. But at that point, you still want to be charging, and you're still going to pay for it, right? Versus paying, $6 a gallon for premium? So I think it's time that we make this move to do it and charge what we're charging ourselves, and not to recapture what we lost in the past, but going forward to make it fair. Not only that, as the price goes up, our cost goes up. And so that price to charge here, anyone in the city will go up with it. But it's fair across the board. There's no difference. So I'm always in favor of it. I'll make that motion as you get going to approve the item.
Shouldn't we take public comment first?
We did. You did.
Oh, we did?
Yeah.
Oh, golly gee, that went fast.
Councilmember Napolitano.
Sorry.
How's electric fan working for you there?
Nah, too cold.
No comment. Thank you, Your Honor. Long COVID.
Choked him up again.
No, but, Your Honor, going on what Councilmember Lesser said, You know, sometimes things make sense when they begin and trying to provide an incentive for folks to switch gears from something that they've done for years and years, and that's drive gasoline-powered cars. And we want to encourage cars that at that time were all electric. Now things are going hybrid, and their alternative fuels in play as well. And we don't know how things are going to shake out, but what made sense at that time I don't think makes sense anymore. A lot of these pure electric vehicles are expensive, so we're subsidizing a lot of cars that are much more expensive than the standard that a lot of other people buy. A lot of people park at these things overnight. They do here in the City Hall parking lot. The residents across the street park overnight because it's free to charge their car that way rather than doing it at home. And at this point, I think the city should get out of the EV charger business, because it's better served at their place of residence or on private property where businesses are, as we've seen. It's up at the mall, it's at Gellison's, it's at different sites across the way. For the city to continue to pay for the maintenance of them, pay for the installation, yeah, we can recoup our costs, but it doesn't make sense to keep on doing that. We've got 2 or 3 down in the parking lot here. As things grow and become hybrid or anything, we're not going to have enough for everybody. So people scrambling over 1 or 2 chargers doesn't make sense to me either. At some point, I think we need to get out of this business, let folks charge where it makes sense. I don't think the city hall or city property is that for the future. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Homer.
Seems like get out of it altogether or charge for it is, I think, what Councilmember Montgomery was saying, right? And I also want to comment, I don't know if it was 2009, but I know Councilmember Lesser and I were here when Hermosa Beach resident Density Nelson came to us to say there are people out there, there are grants out there to install these chargers. So we were able to install, I don't know how many chargers for free. Which was just a shout out to Density, and I think it was very innovative at the time. And the reason I wanted to do it at the time was to incentivize people to consider electric vehicles, or hybrid as it turns out. So I think it was a good decision at the time, and I think government has that role to play sometimes to help make changes. But I do see it's no longer necessary to do so. I have a hybrid, full disclosure, and I don't need free charging. I do have at home, and I charge at home. I also have solar panels, so that kind of helps out. So I don't need the free charging. Never did, but so I don't know whether we get out of the business altogether or we charge for it. I think with getting out of it altogether, what you're saying is we're no longer on the hook for maintaining, for assessing, etc. That's an interesting concept. I hadn't really thought of that. I thought, okay, time to start charging for it. So I'm agnostic on that, but I do think that we do not need to subsidize in order to incentivize the societal change at this point.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Lesser.
I was proud to be part of a council that supported a number of environmental policies, including free EV chargers to encourage more people to buy EV. My family owns an all-electric vehicle as well as a hybrid, and I must say it's been a nice convenience to have. But with the growth in the number of EVs, with the additional availability of charging stations, I think the city can no longer underwrite the cost, and moving forward with this fee structure is necessary. Where I might beg to differ with my esteemed colleague is I think there is a role for us to continue to offer underwritten costs with these chargers, because more and more people, including my family, have EV vehicles, and to come to City Hall, the Transfact business, it's nice to be able to have an EV space, and I think more and more people will have EVs. But I nonetheless will be supporting the motion, even though it's been a wonderful convenience for me, but it should not be just on the city's dime.
Great, thank you. So So it's very interesting because my wife has been after me to get an EV for the last, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years, and being conservative, I said, well, let's just wait. And in a sense, I'm glad we waited because now hybrid is looking like it's taking over the market share from a pure EV vehicle. I saw the need for chargers, though. Because remember, range anxiety. I mean, the early models of the EVs didn't have as great a distance that they could go. And so it sort of made sense to sort of help residents and visitors with a little gap, closing the gap there and giving them some peace of mind that they could go ahead. It basically launched the whole EV market. California leads that area. California leads, I think, in clean energy production, so it makes sense to do that. But the technology is changing so rapidly, I don't think we need to be a technology leader in the sense of, figuring out what's going to be the next wave out there and then accommodate that. And because there's private enterprises that will do that, you go over to Gelson's, you see electric chargers. You go over to the mall, you see electric chargers. You go to those places where cars are congregating and standing, and it makes a good use of the time, right? You go shopping for an hour, you're charging your car for an hour. And as was mentioned before, they give a little bit free, but then you have to pay for it. So I, too, believe that we should have it. A base level maybe depends upon what's offered in the future in terms of adding chargers, but that we should go ahead and recoup our costs and charge the 51 cents. So
I have one question.
You have a comment?
One question for city staff, if I could, and maybe this is more of a community development question, but to what extent are chargers required beyond a certain square footage of certain new construction? Just curious. This is a separate side issue to what's before us, but I was just curious for information purposes.
I was waiting for that question. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council members, Community Development Director Talin Mirzakhanian. The California Green Code does require that any new building and any remodel projects result in some provision of electric vehicle charging stations and future electric vehicle charging stations. That's also part of the new code. Sometimes you'll see something says EVCS, but it doesn't necessarily have a charger yet. It's ready for installation of a charger in the future. So both of those are California Green Code requirements that cannot be avoided.
And just one quick follow-up, if I may. Is there any provision as to whether or not that should be or must be free power?
No.
So it's the requirement for the inclusion of the charger.
Correct.
But no restriction on whether or not it's free or
Correct.
there can be a charging. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. And Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, I see there's a motion. Want to hear your motion because
My motion is to support the fees to recover costs related to electric vehicle charging at city facilities.
Okay, so keep the chargers, but charge cost recovery. We're not touching them around town or anything. We're not taking them out of.
Correct.
But we're just, okay, I support that motion.
Wow.
Look at that.
Okay.
Your lucky day.
So as mentioned, we have a motion by Councilmember Richard Montgomery and seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Amy Haworth.
And that's to adopt resolution number 240034.
Okay, thank you.
37?
37.
Yep, 37.
Okay.
Motion passes 4-1.
Thank you.
So moving on to item general business and item number 8. This is to.
Something I said?
I'll be right back. Keep going.
All right, we'll give 30 seconds for people. Thank you, Scouts.
Good evening. Talin Mirzakhanian, your Community Development Director once again. The staff report for this item is the product of a truly collaborative effort amongst the Community Development Department, Finance Department, and the Public Works Department. While Senior Planner Jay Hee-yoon will provide the presentation for the City Council this evening, we are accompanied by our Finance Director Sherelian, our city traffic engineer, Eric Zanvliet, our senior civil engineer, Jeff Fialka, and myself and Jehi in order to answer any questions from the council. I would also like to note the unwavering commitment from the members of the Outdoor Dining Task Force, whose time and effort has truly assisted us in getting to this point in the process. With that, I would like to turn it over to Jehi for the presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. I'm Jehi Yoon, City Senior Planner with the Community Development Department, and the item before you is a status update report on the long-term outdoor dining program development. Back in February 2024, we presented the second status update report before the City Council, which included community outreach efforts conducted to date, the preferred program vision in the form of a conceptual plan that consisted of sidewalk widening, parking reconfiguration, and outdoor dining area, as well as public flex space identification on the plans. And in order to further develop the conceptual plans into preliminary plans, the City Council was asked to consider a potential contract amendment with our outdoor dining consultant, MIG. At the time, the City Council directed staff to come back with a rough order of magnitude estimate to better understand the associated costs in implementing the preferred program vision. In the following weeks, staff prepared a ROM estimate based on the conceptual plans presented at the February City Council meeting, which included 6 street segments throughout downtown and North Manhattan Beach. The ROM estimate assumes that sidewalk widening will occur in front of eating and drinking establishments only, as indicated on the conceptual plans, and blue sidewalk tiles will be eliminated from each block that is modified as part of the outdoor dining plan implementation. Staff attempted to capture the work depicted on the conceptual plan as closely as possible, which resulted in a potential range between $7.5 and $12.5 million. The cost includes, but is not limited to, removal of parking meters, as that may be part of a different CIP project in the future, and protecting and replanting existing trees to the extent feasible, adding new street lights where there will be full sidewalk reconstruction, ADA-compliant pedestrian access improvements, and also necessary retaining walls and railings along the slope portions of Manhattan Beach Boulevard to create level pad areas with the eating and drinking establishments' finished floor areas. Staff also looked at potential funding sources to build out and recover costs of the implementation. In terms of construction, the city may explore certificates of participation similar to issuing bonds and grant funding opportunities that MIG will be able to provide us in the form of recommendations as part of the preliminary work scope. And in terms of cost recovery, our options include imposing outdoor dining permit fees for program participants, increasing parking meter fees and parking citation fines, and exploring revenue enhancement ballot measures, including local sales tax measures. If the City Council desires to move forward, the next step would be to develop preliminary plans by a civil engineer, which will allow us to look at the technical and financial feasibility of the conceptual plan and prepare for construction documentation in the future. On a parallel track, this enables the city to proceed with the necessary regulatory process of establishing a long-term outdoor dining ordinance and also related amendments to the local coastal program. In other words, the preliminary design will enable us to demonstrate how we'll take an idea and bring it to fruition by demonstrating how we can comply with the necessary code requirements, policies, procedures, including the Coastal Act, to bring the vision into life. And if the City Council would desire to move forward, the amendment amount will require appropriating approximately $91,727 to MIG's original contract. From here, I'll walk you through, we'll transition into a different topic related to the task force meeting outcomes in recent months. The first is live outdoor entertainment and amplified music. Based on discussions, the task force is recommending that we allow both activities with permits on public and private property from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. However, they are recommending restricting live outdoor entertainment in the public right-of-way to special events only without further encroaching into the right-of-way, and also prohibiting both activities on second-floor dining areas that are not fully enclosed, with no exceptions to allow so with any form of permits. They also recommended placing speakers on private property only and setting quantitative noise level standards for proper enforcement. Based on discussions with the Code Enforcement Division as well as police departments, field observation and experience, establishing a set quantitative noise level standard is not recommended, since there are multiple external factors surrounding the environment that affects how noise levels are perceived versus how they are measured. So utilizing a quantitative parameter will be challenging from an enforcement standpoint. And in addition, the city currently does not have the necessary sound level meters and the training or certified staff to effectively enforce noise issues through quantitative means. Instead, the city will continue to rely on the reasonable person test found in Title V of the Municipal Code, which largely consists of subjective criteria that looks at each individual complaint on a case-by-case basis. Given how difficult it is to enforce noise regulations, staff's recommendation differs from the task force in that we would like to continue to prohibit live outdoor entertainment and amplified music in the public outdoor dining areas. However, allowing the opportunity for businesses to apply for exceptions through Title V amplified sound permits. At a larger scale, the task force also discussed enforcing outdoor dining regulations for repeat violators and recommends that outdoor dining permits be revoked on the fourth enforcement action and prohibit them from reapplying for the same permit for a one-year period. This slide illustrates the revocation process with the notice of violation starting the one-year clock, followed by 3 administrative citations when the permit would be revoked. The City Council may also consider adding a new part-time code enforcement staff for active patrol in the future, as there will likely be more violations occurring after the city, Code Enforcement Division staff's regular working hours, or as an alternative, authorize potential overtime of existing code enforcement staff with assistance from the police department as we continue to address complaints on a more reactive basis moving forward. In summary, staff tonight is seeking City Council's direction on 1, potential amendment to MIG's professional services agreement to develop the preliminary plans, and 2, task force recommendations regarding A, live outdoor entertainment and amplified music in outdoor dining areas, and B, code enforcement mechanism for outdoor dining permits. This concludes staff's presentation, and we also have representatives from MIG joining us via Zoom if you have any questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Yoon. Councilmember Napolitano.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions. I don't know who I'm directing this to, but Mr. City Manager, I'll direct it to you. Metlocks, the outdoor dining areas on Metlocks. Metlocks is a public plaza that's owned by and maintained by the city, correct?
Correct.
And then the restaurants, though, they have outdoor dining that extends into that, correct? Under agreement with the city.
There is outdoor dining.
Yes, if I may.
Okay.
We are issuing outdoor facilities permits for those encroaching into the plaza area, but for some establishments, such as the bakery, they also have an agreement built into the master use permit application that they submitted and we approved in the past.
And they pay for that, though, right?
Yeah.
The rent includes the cost of that. Outdoor.
That's correct. And then separately, the ones that have the additional space since COVID, they're paying the outdoor facilities fee to us annually.
Okay, and then who paid for the railings at those facilities?
Like Petros.
They did, not us.
They did.
Correct.
Okay. So I'm trying to think of other situations. The walk streets. Now, walk streets, right, city maintains the public right-of-way that the pedestrians use. up and down the street. But there's a 5 to 8 to 10 foot encroachment on either side of that is typically within what seems to be the boundaries of the homeowners adjacent to the Walk Street, correct?
Those are all public right-of-way.
Right.
And they apply for the encroachment permit. There's a one-time fee associated with that when they apply for the encroachment permit.
And then who builds all the improvements and pays for all the improvements within that right-of-way?
They're responsible for that.
They're responsible.
The private contractor.
But we don't pay for the patios and the fountains? Or
Correct.
anything else? Okay. And then, my understanding of the proposal, as far as the cost goes, is that we're only looking at changing and paying. This feels as bad as it sounds. We're only looking at redoing the sidewalks next to the restaurants, correct?
In some segments, but other segments, it extends the full length of the street.
Well, on the south side of Manhattan Beach Boulevard between Morningside and Highland, is that going to be improved in any way?
Not in the current conceptual plan.
So there wouldn't be any money to redo so the north side of the street gets a nice new wide sidewalk. The south side keeps the crappy gray tiles that we have out there now that are broken and missing.
What we did as a part of this exercise is we had to establish certain parameters to be able to show the council exactly what it would cost under the guise of outdoor dining. However, if the council wanted us to extend that so that there could be the aesthetic improvement pulled forward to the other side of the street, that would be an additional cost.
Right.
Right, and but because we had to establish some level of parameters without assuming that the council would want to.
I understand why you did it, but it's just the end result is going to be, it's like, here's the pretty side of the street, and here's the shabby thing that we wish we could redo right now. But we're not going to hit them anytime soon because this is proposed to go first.
Unless directed otherwise by council.
Directed otherwise. Okay, that's it for now. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Montgomery.
Thank you, Your Honor. A question for Senior Planner Yoon.
Yes.
And Martha, would you mind putting up slide number on page 9? Enforcement of outdoor dining regulations, please. There it is. So I'm curious, was this recommendation for the task force to give them 4 shots? I mean, 3 notices and then revoke the permit on 4th violation, or did that come from staff, or was it outdoor dining task force?
It was a collaborative effort between the building official, staff, and also the task force because we didn't want to be too restrictive, but also be more realistic on how these violations work.
My fault for not saying this to you earlier, both of you. But I thought about this. I mean, I think we all know the rule, 3 strikes and they're out. And that applies here, not just baseball. But I mean, everybody growing up knows you get 1 warning, a second more severe warning, and you get a 3rd. That's what DMV does. All of us understand the rules. So I was just curious where it came from because I'm not in favor of a 4th notice. If you can't get the rules changed by the first 2, you shouldn't be in the game. So I'll stop there. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem, Amy Hope.
Thank you. With regards to the comments about, from the business owner from the north end, was the traffic study, presented to the task force? Because that is, at times, that is an incredibly busy thoroughfare. So you are widening the sidewalk, I guess, like down by Fish Bar and then by Ponchos, I think by 7 feet and 5 feet. So does it reduce a lane of traffic? There's a, look at that, he popped up, the traffic engineer. Wow. Yes.
It's whack.
Whack-a-mole.
Whack an engineer?
Yeah.
Map on the screen.
Yeah, you want to put the map on the screen of the, I think it's page 245 of 300. It's the North End Outdoor Dining Conceptual Plan. Yeah, and so there at the top of the image, we want to widen it to 7 feet and then down. Well, you're not showing it on there, I don't think. Maybe you are. Widen sidewalk. Oh, yeah, you are. Sorry.
Yes.
Yes. So the question is that going to take a lane of traffic? Is it going to narrow the traffic down?
So my name is Eric Zambleet, City Traffic Engineer. Thank you very much for the question, Mayor Pro Tem. There are many different things going on in the north end with regard to potentially widening the sidewalk. Most of the widened areas would be taking the place of a parking space area, 7 or 8 feet wide. It would be no different than having a parked car there as far as access is concerned. The lane widths wouldn't be narrowed in that sense. At the very north end of the Highland Avenue at Rosecrans Avenue, there is the possibility of widening the sidewalk there along the east side of the street. That configuration would shift the lanes to the west, and it would you would have to make a choice whether or not we would have 2 through lanes there or 1 through lane in a left turn pocket. Either one could work in that area.
And we received this in an email too. There's also a question about, and it's a future concern, but with high roads going in right there, in that area, there any consideration to additional cars that will be as a result of that project?
Right. And to embellish on the traffic volume question as well.
Oh, yes, that's right. That's the thing I want to
Yes.
know, because is it 100 cars a day? What is it?
Yes. So
Yeah, I know.
the traffic volume on Highland Avenue is about 14,000 cars a day. It sounds a lot. When you break it down by hour, it's not as much, but it's still a high volume street. It is also about 14,000 cars a day in downtown. And so the volume along Highland Avenue is fairly consistent that way. It's not going up. We did our last traffic survey last year and found that traffic volumes are not going up in the city. With regard to verandas or the High Roads project, the High Roads project, if it was left as is and it's verandas in the office buildings at occupancy or having a restaurant and office buildings, would have a little bit more traffic volume from that kind of project than it does with the residential project. So the residential project traffic volumes will actually go down a little bit from a fully occupied site. So no additional traffic mitigation measures would be necessary.
Okay, thank you. And then I have questions. I'm sorry for Jihei again. Sorry. No.
You might be getting what Councilmember Napolo.
Oh, did you? I know, right? What's happening?
Actually, maybe I'll.
That's all the questions I have
Okay,
for you
thank
at
you.
this, at least for me, but I do have a question for her too.
Miss you.
Although maybe it's for Public Works, with the rough order of magnitude cost estimates. It does seem like a couple of the areas, it's Manhattan Beach Boulevard East and West, seem to have much higher cost estimates than the other streets. Sorry.
I will defer to Jeff.
We have to get the right, please, yes.
Good evening, Mayor Franklin, members of the council. Jeff Fialka, Senior Civil Engineer.
Thanks, Jeff.
To answer your question about the cost breakdown or allocation amongst the different segments, the cost estimate was based on actual quantities. I mean, field verification, measuring in the field, using GPS to measure out the quantities. So some of the sheets of the concept plan will have higher cost, but there's more work being done there.
Of course.
So if you're looking specifically at some of them, having more cost allocated, potentially there's more sidewalk being reconstructed, more dining decks created.
And slopes, right? Like, what I was looking at is it seems like with Manhattan Beach Boulevard East and West, it's a slope. It's a slope, is that part of it?
Not so much involved in the cost for this to count for the slope, with the exception of the dining areas. So on Manhattan Beach Boulevard, we would have to accommodate a level platform to build a dining area on, which would also require, retaining railing
Right.
a retaining
So
wall around the deck itself and some type of railing to keep, people from falling off the edge if there's a drop off at the downside edge.
So it's not just widening sidewalks, it's also for some of those, and they're identified very clearly in the plan, the raised decks, which are cement decks and the railings. Okay, great, thank you.
Yes, and in most cases, they wouldn't necessarily be raised at the high end, depending on where the door is for
Right.
the business. It may
Depending
only be
on the
raised
map,
at the low
right?
end. Yes.
All right, thank you.
Anything
all.
else related
Okay,
to the
thank you.
estimate?
No, I'm good. I'm
Thank
good
you.
for now.
Councilmember Lesser?
I guess I have a policy question, either for the city manager or for Director Mirzakhanian, if I could. The city staff and our task force has really done exactly what council has asked, to explore and come up with this preferred program vision that has been explored. But now with this rough order of magnitude, I'm taken back to the beginning and sort of the foundational question about outdoor dining in our public right-of-way. And I would welcome your help in at least just framing what the policy argument would be in favor of it, because we've all received many emails in favor of it, but we've also received some critical, and they would be summarized as basically this is a gift of public property for commercial purposes, for certain commercial purposes. And I guess my question that I'm left with and I'm struggling with is, so what is the public interest? Public interest could be said that we want more outdoor dining because that's part of the virtue of our community and everyone benefits from it. But to the extent we're using taxpayer funds for this study as well as potentially undertaking this project, how could one articulate what that public interest might be?
I'll start by saying that the intent has always been and still is to charge for the use of the public space for those establishments who choose to use it in the future. Aside from that, the way the proposal is set up right now, it expands the sidewalks and incorporates improvement in public flex spaces for the use of the general public, not just the restaurateurs. And what that means is we have to show to the Coastal Commission that this is not just a privatization of our public space, that it's a well thought out, holistic program that we're putting forward that incorporates the public flex spaces and the enhancements to those areas that will be able to be utilized by the general public who can't necessarily afford to go to some of the restaurants that will be able to use the outdoor dining areas. So that's one part of it. And the other part of it is that with the expansion of the sidewalks on streets like Manhattan Avenue and Highland, where you don't have the sloped decks in place, if an establishment chooses not to use that, or if an establishment moves their street furniture inside during the times when they're not using it. So, for example, if someone were to be utilizing it in the evenings for dinner service only, but it was cleared during the day, then the public just has wider sidewalks to utilize, which is a complaint that we hear often, and we definitely heard a lot as we were engaging the community in this effort. There's an overall sentiment that our sidewalks are not wide enough. So differing times of the day, depending on when the restaurant is using that space and when it gets cleared out, the public will have wider sidewalks overall.
Is staff aware of other jurisdictions which have assessed the property owners that benefit the most, potentially, if council goes forward with this proposal, for the improvements that directly benefit those appurtenant properties?
Repeat the question one more time, please.
I'm wondering if beyond just using our public taxpayer resources to undertake a proposal like this, starting with the overall plan, if other jurisdictions have assessed the property owners that directly would benefit from increased occupancy and increased revenue generation.
I'm not sure about other jurisdictions, but I know that as a part of our stakeholder outreach, we are engaging with non-restaurant businesses, for example, to understand how retailers were affected during COVID when the dining decks were available, and how they anticipate maybe being affected in the future if outdoor dining comes back in a larger form. And, we've heard both sides of the argument, including more foot traffic means more people coming to our retail stores, and we would appreciate that. On the flip side, we also heard that the dining decks blocked, aesthetically and visibly blocked some of the retailers, so they had less foot traffic.
Okay.
So we've heard both sides of that argument.
So some quick questions for Public Works, and Jay, I'm sorry to cut you out of the conversation, maybe for you as well. If other restaurants across the street later want to have an outdoor dining pad, is there flexibility in this plan, even though it's obviously in concrete, to add extended pads, or is it exclusive to the layout that's in the current plan?
The way it's proposed, it's specific to this layout, but as far as expanding the future, or if a business across the street wanted to add a deck, that would be more of something that would, take into effect the traffic impacts and go to community development to see if it's achievable. I mean, if it's desired, Public Works could build it.
I wanted to better understand the loss of the current tiles. I know some up here are not thrilled with those tiles, but they do provide an aesthetic treatment, which obviously needs a refresh. But I'm just wondering what the plan is here for how it might look inconsistent throughout our downtown if the current plan were to be pursued.
Put them on your driveway.
Thank you.
With the current plan, we're not taking into account any improvements in those areas outside of the dining area improvements, unless it was added to this project or included as a separate project later. I will point out that in front of the library, the tiles were removed during reconstruction. Now, granted, it's a slightly different situation because you don't have business frontages right there, but most people probably don't notice that it is the only gap on these main three thoroughfares where we have a span without the tiles.
Thank you. I see others want to speak, but quickly, the width of the sidewalk with the expanded sidewalk, what would it be at its minimum? There was a representation that this was going to expand our sidewalks, but then you add the outdoor dining. I'm just wondering if there really will be a net benefit on some of our sidewalks.
Yes, thank you very much.
On
Where
all of our
in the
sidewalks.
areas that will be expanded in front of eating and drinking establishments, and the areas maybe between a few of those restaurants, the segments that are widened are somewhere between 16 and 18 feet wide of sidewalk. Up to 8 feet of that could be used for sidewalk dining. So you'd have 10 feet of unobstructed sidewalk, which would not be obstructed by parking meters or anything else.
Okay.
And what are they
Thank
now?
you.
And what are they now?
Right now, they're 10 feet from curb to front of the establishment, but there's also street lighting in there and parking meters.
And parking meters. So when you take that out, it's probably
So 7.5 feet.
7.5 feet.
Yeah, of usable sidewalk.
And what is ADA compliance?
ADA compliance nowadays is 48 inches, 4 feet.
4 feet.
For sidewalk.
Okay. I may have other questions. I don't want to hog
Okay.
everyone else's time. Thank you.
I've got questions now. So, let's see, because we're trying to get a handle on this. So, you had, because of some questions, you had produced a spreadsheet that showed, well, my question was, per Councilmember Napolitano, is that you have now this old sidewalk infrastructure out there. And it's not included in the cost of this project, which we've made clear, but what would be the cost if we were to try to make all of that uniform? Not extending decks, but to just give the same look and aesthetic as the rest. And I believe you got it nicely down to some square footage too, so comparison.
We did take a look at that. So essentially, the Manhattan Avenue, Manhattan Beach Boulevard, and Highland Avenue have a 6-foot wide path of gray tile generally all the way down. So Manhattan Avenue has it from 8th Street to 13th Street, Highland from 10th Street to 15th, and Manhattan Beach Boulevard from the Strand Path all the way to Valley Ardmore. So outside, as we've discussed, outside of the areas of the dining deck improvements, that tile would remain. So we did cost out what it would cost to replace that just within that path. So we're not talking about reconstructing the sidewalks in these other areas other than just removing that 6-foot wide path and all of the crosswalks and ramps associated with it, because as I'm sure you're aware, the crosswalks are either tile or stamped asphalt with an overlay that have that same blue tile pattern. So the cost to do those improvements outside the areas already impacted with the proposed outdoor dining program is on the order of $8 million. Our rough estimate, it comes in just under $8 million.
That's I'm sorry, can I?
Well,
Go ahead.
Yeah, I've got a bunch more. Okay. Okay, so.
Sorry, we do have a map up there if that helps at all. The blue.
Yeah, that's the one I wanted that you'd sent us. So that was not included in the staff report, right?
No, it's not in the original staff report.
Okay, so if anybody is wondering, this was added afterwards. So can you explain this map, please?
Yeah, so the blue lines are where we have the existing gray tile or blue tile and the crosswalks that I had mentioned. And as I indicated, they're along those 3 roadways on both sides. And then the green areas is the green highlight over the blue, indicating those are the segments that would be reconstructed as part of the outdoor dining program. And to be clear, within the blocks that have maybe a restaurant, 2 restaurants in a row, and then no restaurant for the rest of the block, within the outdoor dining program, what we've costed out is replacing the tile in front of the non-restaurants, but we would not be widening the sidewalk in that area, as that would impact parking further.
Right, okay. And the process of removing the tile, I mean, they're about, what, a quarter-inch thick, and then?
We're anticipating demolishing the concrete along that 6-foot wide path. So we would saw cut it and then put new concrete in place.
Okay.
Which is an opportunity to go back with something decorative or stamped if that was desired by the council.
Okay. And what would you, when was this infrastructure put in, and what do you think is the useful life of the existing infrastructure?
You're referring to the tile?
Well, just
late 80s.
The downtown sidewalks and tile and.
See if anybody here has some better information. I will say that
Streetscape from the late 1980s.
You may notice that the crosswalks, the original ones, are actual tile on the crosswalk, but decades ago, due to the availability of that tile, the crosswalks were transitioned to a stamped overlay in asphalt. Perhaps somebody from community development knows more of the history of these. I'm not too familiar with it.
It was in the 80s.
Yeah, okay, so in the 80s. So what is the typical useful life for that kind of, hardscape?
Hardscape? I mean, it can last centuries depending on how thick it is and how much it's used. But certainly 50 to 70 years would not be atypical for a concrete sidewalk.
Okay. So we have 20,
44.
20. So we're 45 years into it? 44 years into it?
Well, you can go down and see the broken tiles.
Well, I know, I
missing
understand,
one.
but.
I would like to add that the city did investigate and took a look and made a study of the blue tiles or gray tiles and came up with some options, including stamped concrete and things like that. And there was some demonstration projects in front of the city hall, in fact, for that, because we knew that the blue tiles or the gray tiles would not last forever. And those are the ones that are failing first. We have to replace those, and we don't have the tiles anymore, so we have to actually just fill it in with some kind of patch. Over time, that's going to look even more and more patchy. So with regard to the decorative tiles, that useful life is coming to its end.
Okay. Mrs. Franklin would not like patchy. So. Okay, so the point I'm trying to make here is that if we're going to do it one place, we're going to probably have to do it in the other places. And so we're adding $8 million in?
That's our estimate for the additional areas, yes.
All right, just another question here. Is the number of outdoor dining seats? So can we get some clarification on that? How many we have now? How many? And then the other part of that question is occupancy limits and how it impacts that to what the existing occupancy limit is, or would that have to be adjusted?
So currently, our sidewalk dining ordinance does not allow any increase in their capacity. So anything indoor seating needs to be placed outdoors with no net increase. Currently, with the permitted sidewalk dining areas, we were able to observe that there's 156 seats available along the sidewalks. And with the conceptual plan, when we maxed out how many seats can be available along the sidewalks, it came out to be 610. And with the additional anticipated outdoor dining seating capacity, the outdoor dining consultant is taking that number and running their numbers and analysis to see what kind of parking alternatives, including micro-mobility opportunities, that we can propose.
Okay. So the 610, the 156 are there now, is that correct?
Yes,
And
that's
they're being
correct.
used, pretty much, all the
For the
sidewalk-
most part, yes, because we also,
Sidewalk dining permits?
yes, that's correct.
Are
Because we
being
also
used.
did a field observation to count the seats.
Okay, and so if there's any outdoor seats provided, a restaurant has to take them out, has to reduce the indoor, so.
Yes, that's how it should be in
In a
principle.
macro sense, would you say that just, we're going to be serving the same amount of diners? But some of them can choose to sit outside?
With the current regulations, yes, that should be the
That's
case.
not what's proposed, though.
Right now, we're allowing to propose an increase in outdoor dining capacity as the investments wouldn't be as viable if we limited the numbers to
Okay.
a no net increase.
So is that a coastal commission issue too? We have to
With
get
the
their
increase,
agreement, or how do we go through
so that's why.
increasing those occupancy limits?
So that's why we're looking at maybe putting a cap on the maximum number of seats that will be available for sidewalk dining. But the consultant team is taking the 610 anticipated seats into their analysis to see how much additional alternative parking solutions that can be provided.
Right, can you just explain that for people who haven't gone through that process about parking to the occupancy?
So in other words, it's not necessarily the occupancy increase, but the parking impacts that are generated by the occupancy increase that the Coastal Commission would want to see that we are addressing. And so in an attempt to address the fact that we are suggesting that the restaurants are able to increase their occupancy as a result of this program, we would have to include corresponding solutions to that. And so that could include a combination of us showing them and demonstrating that we are increasing our bicycle facilities for both e-bikes and regular bicycles, as they understand that not all people who travel to downtown Manhattan Beach are traveling by car. And we would couple that with any other micromobility options we are able to come up with, and other public access improvements as well. So the flex spaces are still serving multiple purposes in this program, because as the Coastal Commission has described it to us, it doesn't have to be a one-to-one solution for the parking. We don't have to provide one parking space for the occupancy increases. It doesn't have to be a direct relation. It could be this holistic approach where we're showing them we're making other public access improvements, such as the improved public flex spaces, the bicycle spaces, et cetera.
Okay, and I also just want to thank you, because I understand you and your staff are doing a great job walking hand in hand with the Coastal Commission in these plans, so that there won't be any surprises at the end.
They are informed every step of the way. We have regularly scheduled meetings with them. So far, they understand our conceptual plan and have been very supportive. And we're starting to hear from them that other cities have started to go in the same direction, but we're further ahead.
Okay, so I have some other questions, but I'll leave them for later. Thank you. So we have Councilmember Napolitano.
Thank you, and to either City Manager, Steve, sir, what do we get in sales tax? When sales tax is paid to the state, what do we get back on a dollar?
Get 1%, and it's about 11 million.
What's that?
1%.
1%?
Yeah, it's about $11 million.
Percent of a dollar?
Yeah.
A penny?
No. We get $11 million, and I believe it is 1%.
1%
of what the total collected is for the city.
Okay. But I'm saying, right, okay. Same idea. So part-time code enforcement staff to enforce the rules, who's going to pay for that?
I would assume it would be coming out of the general fund and with the fees collected.
Okay. Question to Director Mirzakanian. You talked about the benefit of the wider sidewalks, which I'm all for, but when you say that you have an added benefit when they're not in use, say if a restaurant doesn't serve lunch that day, are we saying that they're not going to have a delineation, a railing in place throughout the the entire time so that there's no spillover into the sidewalk from putting up the tables and chairs for dinner or anything like that?
The idea is that there will be a temporary barrier, which would be put in place when they are serving outside and then taken inside.
So like some chain or rope or something?
Correct.
Okay. And then, get back, so the new capacity that we're talking about is in addition to the indoor dining that's already there, because, it was sounding like, oh, we're going to keep the same policy in the past, but that's not the idea at all.
No, we discussed this with the task force, and I believe it was unanimous that and it's clear from the businesses as well, if there is no increased occupancy.
Right, we talked about that before. Why do it if it's the same? Micromobility, I've heard about that for 20 years. Everyone's going to ride their bike downtown. I'll put that aside. It hasn't happened yet. What do we know about the number of restaurants that are really going to participate in this, though, given that we're going to be charging what's considered market rate per square foot?
The restaurants who have either participated in the task force meetings or participated in the stakeholder engagement all understand that there will be some contribution from their part, just as there is today. Right now, the sidewalk dining permits, they're paying about...
Get that, but the question was, how many we know are guaranteed to participate, knowing that there's going to be a cost per square foot?
We don't have a definitive answer, and part of it is because they also want to know how much is it going to cost us to participate. So, so we're still trying to figure that out, but we do have to have a design in order to have a fee developed for the program.
Well, I mean, to that point, though, why is there nothing in the staff report regarding cost participation? Because that's what might lead up on the encroachment, the cost, and who bears the improvements on the private side for the homes along walk streets. Same thing with the outdoor dining in the Metlocks as well, is why would, I'm all for, like I said, wider sidewalks, and I understand the public good of redoing the sidewalks in general and creating a better pedestrian space. But when it comes to the build-out, especially like Manhattan Beach Boulevard, where you have the decks that are going to have to be level and on a slope, and even the spaces right in front of businesses. I mean, the vehicle part, the reason there is a downtown business association is because the business improvement district was the carryover from the vehicle parking districts that were created years ago, where businesses paid into this to create the parking lots that we have now in downtown. And yet there's no proposal here of that kind of participation. Even the space, I don't know what it is, 4 by whatever in front of the restaurants for their individual dining deck that would be for their benefit, we're not asking them to pay for that.
The simple answer is that our consultant is still analyzing what that cost would be. So we don't have the answer yet to provide for the council, but we will. They're taking into account the
How
cost.
much was the consultant contract? They can't come up with that number yet?
They're still assessing the sales tax data that they received not too long ago.
I'm not sure what that has to do with what the cost of the construction would be, but okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Montgomery.
Thank you, Your Honor. Could I see Jeff, or see your plan for a second? Jeff, just a question for you. The map you showed earlier, the blue and the green, is there one for the north end as well?
Yeah, conceptual.
No, because we don't have the blue tiles up there. There is a conceptual map for the north end.
I saw that one. I just wanted to see what it looked like on the north end as well. All right. Thank you, Your Honor. Nothing else? Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, I think Jeff actually stay for a minute, please. I want to clarify a couple things. So the $8 million, when the mayor was asking about the blue tiles, I think it was the mayor, blue tiles versus the areas where there aren't blue tiles, the $8 million was additional above the estimate.
Correct.
So the 7.5 to 12.5. In order to make things uniform, it would be that much more. Okay, that's number one. Number two, I believe Ms. Yoon did clarify that the 610 is above current capacity now. Okay, I think you go ahead and you can sit for now.
Thank you.
So I don't know any more elegant. No, you're good. You can. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to, it is interesting to talk about cost participation, if you will, as my colleague said, colleague Napolitano, because right now, if you subtract 156 from, which is the current number of sidewalk seats available, from 610, I think it's about 500 and something. Call it 94. I don't know. That doesn't seem right. But it's like 25,000 per seat with the current plan and the current estimate. Now, this is all a rough estimate. And one thing staff is asking for is additional money for civil engineering plans, which will give us a much more accurate cost. I do want to say, for those who didn't see the staff report, I really appreciate how the department, I guess it's both Public Works and Community Development, created this spreadsheet that has, for lighting, it would be this much for North Manhattan. And it's a very thorough, estimate, I think. But the consulting analysis, you say, is also going to include cost recovery, or are we going to have to pay additional for that to be configured? Whomever is going to answer that. Because what we were just talking about, like what would be based on, you said sales tax, my colleague said construction costs, how are we determining that?
Well, you wouldn't recover sales tax until way down the line once it's been placed.
Well, I know, but there was a mention of, well, the consultant is, yeah, I know.
Yes, they are tasked with providing us a recommended program for what we would charge the participants.
Okay. Because there is something, there are ideas in here from the city of how we could, let's say if we did a bond, how we could raise money to pay for that bond. But there is this notion that, if the restaurant owners are interested, they could contribute over time even. Over time, it wouldn't have to be you have to give us $1 million up front or whatever it is. But let's decide it's going to be 7 years for cost recovery, and, they could pay into that based on their footage or whatnot. I mean, that would be one idea. I think that's all I have right now, because I wanted to confirm the $8 million was additional, because I think we have to consider that, because I can't imagine us saying, okay, let's cherry pick, and, this piece of the sidewalk looks like this and that looks like that. So I think we need to be transparent and include that in our estimate. So, thank you.
So, you reached out to the restaurants and businesses and to get them to participate. Did I see something where you got 10 restaurants and 5 businesses, or what was the number of restaurants and businesses?
For the stakeholder interviews, you were able to reach out to over 30 business owners throughout North End and downtown, and we received participants from 10 in downtown and 5 from North Manhattan Beach.
Okay, so I counted 34 restaurants in downtown, and only 10 participated in any sort of, was it sort of an in-depth?
It was at least a 30-minute interview where they were given the same questions and had an opportunity to provide their input. And it was limited to 2 or 3 participants at a time, so they had ample time to provide their input and responses.
And was one of the questions, are you interested, would you be interested if there's a direct cost recovery, program?
There was a question asked about how much would be a reasonable square footage per month to be charged, and they were willing to pay what would be the market rate or something more less than that. And they were very eager to participate and bring back outdoor dining because they did benefit significantly from the temporary program.
Okay, and there were 5 such members from the north?
Yes. And it wasn't just limited to eating and drinking establishments. It also included food and beverage sales as well as retailers.
Okay. So just reviewing on page 3 of the staff report, talking about servicing the debt. 20-year certificate of participation bonds issued for 10 to 15 million are roughly 727,000 to 1,083,000 per year.
Correct. Good evening.
So if we can, if the city can wants to strive to hit those numbers as much as possible from a combination of things, the majority of which would be from the fee, the outdoor dining fees that we would charge, presumably.
Presumably, we don't know what those fees are, and that's what we want. That's what the necessity is for the extra cost, is to get MIG to come up with those fees. So that's the unknown for tonight.
Okay. So I understand that there was some analysis done of the sales tax revenue to sales tax history.
It's still in the works, Your Honor.
Okay. And the idea is that you get the sales tax of what the restaurants have paid or have generated? And
Correct, and do an analysis to see what the extra seating would generate.
Okay.
That has not been completed. It's under works.
Why aren't we asking the restaurants directly, since they're the experts and they have historical numbers, as opposed to going to sales tax? We can just say how many, they do that analysis, right? Of their.
Yeah, and we have a sales tax consultant, Your Honor, and then it kind of provides for a level playing ground instead of asking the businesses to provide that information. So we have that information, our consultant has it, and they're analyzing it.
Okay, because then what, we're going to extrapolate to the additional seats then?
Correct. That's the idea.
And each one that generates? Okay. It just seems like they have a vested interest in this and they would participate in that if asked, perhaps.
Correct. It's just an unbiased approach, getting it from our consultants and utilizing that data.
Okay. That's all for now.
If I may clarify, Councilmember Napolitano, you asked about the sales tax collected by the city. Our sales and use tax rate is 9.5%, and we get 1% of that, which is about $11 million a year.
But that's
citywide. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I think we need to focus on North End and downtown just to understand.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
To geofence it. To use it.
Oh, look at you.
Yeah, using it. Well, that and microtransit.
Well, we know the majority is from Sepulveda.
Yeah.
PCH.
Okay.
No
All
names.
right,
No names.
Councilmember Lesser?
So consistent with the mayor's and the Mayor Pro Tem's concerns, I think all of us are concerned about the rough order of magnitude, and either for our senior planner, Yoon, or our senior engineer. What was not mentioned, other than just a brief note, is all of the parking meters in this area would be removed, would they not? So there would need to be added cost added on to the rough order of magnitude for another parking mechanism, another project. I want to make sure we're capturing the true rough order of magnitude here. And we have what the mayor was getting at, which is the additional sidewalk, which if we wanted to refresh and update so it's consistent, there would be that added cost, plus adding some form of parking meter supplement. Is that right?
So parking meter removal is included in the estimate. It's assumed that new parking kiosks would be installed as part of a separate project, and that's why the cost, that we believe will move forward most likely independent of this project. So it's not accounted for in this cost estimate. And so if other areas outside, across the street from the dining areas, have the sidewalk improvements, they would also receive the parking kiosk, just like any other parts, once the city ultimately goes in that direction.
Okay. So we should or should not be looking at that cost in terms of an added expenditure in undertaking this project?
When you look at it, it really isn't an added expense because we have to replace our parking meters every 6 to 8 years. This is in the normal cycle of things, and so instead of replacing them with individual meters, we take that cost and put it into a kiosk.
Okay, thank you. I guess then the larger question to Senior Planner Yoon is, are there other costs that we should be considering in authorizing MIG to go forward with its estimate, with its projections, with its engineering drawings, that we should be aware of to the extent that we as fiduciaries want to make sure that we're understanding what we're getting ourselves into?
Right now, we've scoped out the preliminary design to include a more detailed cost estimate and also how the construction will be phased, as well as other funding opportunities that we can tap into. So by and large, I believe that we did include a lot of the things that we wanted to include as part of this preliminary design. And if there are any other engineering needs that do arise, we will have Public Works and our traffic engineer available to assist us.
That's it for now. Thank you.
Okay, great. Mayor Pro Tem Howarth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I don't apologize, but there's a lot of questions. So that's why it's, there's a lot of going on. You were talking, Mr. Mayor, about imposing, with cost recovery, you asked, are the businesses willing to pay more? And it was, alluded to that, yes, they are. If we were to take out a bond or COP, and the debt service would be, up to $1 million a year. But I do want to point out that there's additional suggestions from the Finance Department for instance, increasing the parking meter rates for city lots. If we raise them from $2 an hour to $2.50 per hour, that would create an additional revenue of about $1 million a year. If we increase parking citations from the current fee of $53, for every $1 increase, that's an additional revenue of $60,000 per year. So by raising parking fees or parking fines by $5, that would generate $300,000. So there are, and those are sort of appropriate, in my opinion. I guess I'm not giving an opinion now, but those would be interesting things to explore. The thing I want to go back to, this may be for Director Mirzakhanian. So it's on those sloped streets is where we're talking about the raised concrete decks, correct? So, what's interesting to me is if those areas are not restaurants in the future, now they have a raised deck, or they have something that is part of it's a value to them that goes with the property. It's one thing to have a wide sidewalk because everybody on the block has that. But now these folks would have a raised, I'm calling it a raised deck. I almost see it as a ramp. And I'm not saying I'm opposed to it, but was at the last time when we talked about this, so we asked the departments to cost this out with the raised decks. I do remember that. But would we have the opportunity now to say, well, continue on, because one of the things you're asking is approve additional funding for the civil engineering. And we could say, well, we want to do that, but take the north end, if we decided to, take the north end out, and we don't want to do these raised decks there. Now, we know that means, and I want to hear from you, but we know that means those restaurants that were on a slope wouldn't have the opportunity to participate, right? So that would not appeal to them. But if we wanted to take that out, would that be a cost reduction in terms of the entire project? And then B, what is it that our traffic engineer is waiting to say?
I'll answer the other question. Yes, it would be a cost savings if we did not proceed with the raised decks.
Yeah, okay.
The way we have it envisioned is that on the sloped streets, if a restaurant was interested in doing outdoor sidewalk dining, then we would construct it at the time of the construction of the sidewalk. If a restaurant was not interested in it at the time, then we would construct it as a regular sidewalk, a widened sidewalk. Okay, at the time that someone was interested in it, then we may assess that restaurant or differently in order to construct it. The difference in cost between just a flat sidewalk and the raised flat platform is the retaining walls. You still have to create a flat surface with concrete, and that would be either the flat surface or the sidewalk. It's still the same.
That's a great point. Thank you.
Yeah.
Retaining wall, great, and it would.
And at the time of removal, then we could potentially have a requirement in the encroachment permit that says you have to remove it if you're no longer interested in it.
Right. So what I'm hearing is, even though it may not be spelled out, this is all being considered as part of the cost recovery. So if you want it, okay. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Great. Any more questions? Okay, so going to open up for public comment. Thank you, staff.
Hello. Do I just start, or I don't know if you wanted to take a break, or you said you're opening for public comment, but I don't know if you want to take a break, or are we just starting? Or okay, great. Thank you. Yes, hello. Thank you very much, council members. My name's Alexandra. I live on 10th Street. You know, when this task force started, the whole concept was about dining throughout all of Manhattan Beach, but the last task force meeting I went to, it was exclusively about the downtown. And yet, there's only one resident on the entire task force who lives downtown, and yet we have a greater knowledge of the impact and the history of you know, what things like this can do downtown. We pay more taxes than the downtown businesses, and yet we only have one voice on this task force, and you want us to pay parcel taxes for this project that essentially sort of erodes our way of life. This presentation that they gave here today said nothing of the increased vermin, the roaches, the rats, nothing about the increase of trash and trash trucks, nothing about, you know, the increase of congestion and just noise of people, whether they have music or not. As for like parking, I mean, there will be parking issues. Like you, I have never seen people dress up fancily to go to Slay or MB Post and then ride a bike down to downtown Manhattan Beach. That just doesn't happen. Like, what world do you live in? And on top of that, you know, this concept of like enforcement, like that's not the police's job to like enforce noise. I mean, I've called them for that before, like during 6 Man when one of the restaurateurs, their family played Born to Be Alive by Pachter Hernandez all day on a loop, 2 years in a row. And the cops come out and they turn it off or turn it down, and then the cops leave and they go right back to doing it again. That's not really a solution. And so I really just want to say that if you're going to continue with this, which I really hope you won't, I think this is an absurd project with a lot of expenditure and money, is that we need to have more voices on the task force, because to only have 2 minutes to speak on something that we have a lot more knowledge about, it's really just not right. It's not democratic, and we need a greater voice. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Again, Peter Kim, Sloopies. I'm only going to speak about North Manhattan Beach. So having owned a business and being a property owner in the North End, there's practicality and then there's conceptualization. The practicality is if you eliminate 4 parking spaces, you're creating a nightmare, number one. Number two, having parking spaces versus no parking spaces and widening sidewalks, if per se, as per my email, if there's an emergency, at least cars can move towards the parking spaces and emergency vehicles go down the center lane, which has happened all the time. If you widen that sidewalk, emergency vehicles will not be able to go down that center lane, which puts the city at risk, God forbid something happens, because the emergency vehicle can get there. Another part, and traffic engineer Van Zanvliet was gracious enough to send that. Highland from curb to curb is 40 feet, as opposed to Manhattan Beach Boulevard, which is 60, or Manhattan Avenue, which is 60 feet. By reducing 8 feet of curb to curb from 40 to 32 feet on Highland, I think is detrimental to the businesses as well as to all the traffic. And of course, the X factor is high rows. We have a judge who's going to make that high rows happen, whether there's underground parking or not. You're eliminating parking spaces. By eliminating parking spaces, I'm looking into the future. There's going to be a lot of problems if high rows can't get an underground parking space. So those are some of the things you want to consider for the North End. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. City Manager Mo, to his comment about emergency vehicles, has Has this been vetted with our fire chief, or?
I'd like to ask Colleen that question, or Eric.
Thank you for the question. I mentioned it before, but any of the widenings that are along Highland Avenue would be in place of the same width of a parking space. And so moving over for an emergency vehicle wouldn't be any different than moving over for an emergency vehicle next to a parked car.
Okay. Because it's occupying the same
It's
distance.
occupying the same area.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you. Next.
Evening, everybody. How are you? Well, I think some people have talked about things. I just want to say that I am really appreciative of your consideration of this, your deep consideration of it, and figuring out what's best for downtown and for Manhattan Beach. I was kind of shocked about the amount, but I probably shouldn't. But we're talking about 15, and going into the future, it'll be $20 million. A bond issue, we could barely get an education bond passed. I mean, it passed like by 0.5%. So I don't see anybody who's going to start paying because they want to dine outdoors to be able to have that kind of bond approved by the city, and I don't think we should be spending that kind of money ourselves. The amount of work is immense. It will damage all the sales of downtown businesses for I don't know how long. How long are we talking about? Is it going to be 2 years, 3 years? Like the amount of work that's going to be done and what they're going to find once they dig it up, I think Mr. Montgomery said something about that what's going to happen when we open up those things and what's going to happen. It's going to be cost prohibitive. We're environmentally damaging more. We're going to pull up asphalt, pull up concrete. Where's that going? It's going into landfills, and it is Earth Month. I just want to remind you that. Fire hydrants, meters, valves, water valves. I can't imagine what kind of construction we're going to have. I'm worried about bikes riding down the street. There's tons of them now, e-bikes, and I think by narrowing the streets, it's going to be a problem. If these restaurants want to do it, charge them market rate. All these people are paying huge amounts of rent. Well, they're going to be getting the benefit of it. If that's where you want to go with this, to consider that. The truck deliveries nonstop, 500 more seats, 500 more people sitting down to eat at expensive restaurants. There's only El Sombrero and the pizza place that's left in Manhattan Beach that is anything reasonable for people here that want to sit. And the amplified music, it's going to be a nightmare. I agree with all the code enforcement issues that we would be having, that we shouldn't be having to have the police come out all the time for all that. So that's it. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Hi, Carol Perrin. Good evening. Whether it's 7.5, 12.5, 20.5, in my law firm we used to say it's just wackadoodle. And if anybody has ever been involved in a business where you try to recoup that amount, we will all be long gone before the city will ever be able to recoup anything close to that amount. And we live in the best place in the world. We are very, very lucky people. There's reasons we have sayings. If it's not broken, don't fix it. And certainly not at a cost of $20 million. We have the intensification of use, the negative impact on the character and balance of downtown, and all these enforcement issues. Everyone else is talking about them. I don't want to talk about that. But I do want to reemphasize what was said before about the information or the suggestions you're getting from the task force. Because right now, we have 156 residential units in downtown, and we have 86 commercial units. And as was said, so the biggest and most of the dining recommendations are all about downtown. There are 15 people on the task force. 7 of them are business people. 2 are city staff, 5 are residents who are not directly impacted, they don't live downtown, and poor Jim Burton, what you guys did to him. Because when we're hearing that these things are unanimous, I'm there at every meeting, and Jim is always the no vote. Because he is trying to represent, or even, it's not only the vote, it's the discussion. If you have 14 people with one point of view, and there's nothing wrong with their point of view, but it's not balanced, and you have one resident who is downtown affected, who are the mostly impacted people, it's even the way the conversation goes, not only the vote. Thank you.
Good evening, Council. Martha Andriani, lifetime resident of the downtown. I was very encouraged when City Council asked staff to come back with a cost estimate. Like, how can we decide what we want to do if we don't know how much it's going to cost? And now we have a cost estimate of 7.5 to 12.5 million, and we're still not certain what we're going to get with it. We're going to remove parking meters. We're going to increase parking fees. I think staff has done an excellent job for talking points, but we really now need to get down to more concrete items, as I think City Council is asking for. Even though it has been said that we will not be encroaching onto walk streets, I'm still concerned that we might be. And when we talk about encroachment or these public flex spaces, I hope that council will take action to say, no, we are not going to be moving out onto our walk streets and destroying the charm and the mixed use of the downtown. I and other residents of the downtown do not oppose outdoor dining, but we have we support outdoor dining that's like a patio, like the Kettle, like Esperanza, like El Sombrero. And you'll remember that when we had outdoor dining on the sidewalks and the decks, out come umbrellas, out come heaters, and then so you have, in a way, covered outdoor dining. So I don't see it as a true benefit for the cost that's here. And I thank you for the continuing discussion. I think Jim Burton is doing a great job. I want to give a shout out to him because he does seem balanced to me in his approach for looking at the residential and restaurant uses. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. How you doing? Doing okay?
I think you're
Break after they're done. Take a break after they're done.
Patricia Gilbert. I just wanted to say I've been sitting in the back listening, and what I've heard most is we want these outdoor dining areas, and I haven't seen the other side. I haven't seen the people that want to speak out against this and want to make their voices heard. With only one person on the committee, I find it shocking. And we're talking about $20 million here. I can't imagine that there's something else in Manhattan Beach that we might benefit from $20 million. And it's shocking to me. I've been a resident here for 40 years, and I've paid the bond measures for the schools. I've paid parcel taxes. Actually, I'm exempt, but I haven't filed for my exemption. And I really don't see why this is worth $20 million and with so little voice from the other side. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. My name's Nicholas. I am a downtown resident, fairly new member to the Manhattan Beach community, and I'm against the outdoor dining. First of all, I want to thank everybody from both sides of the parties here just to have open discussions. There's no way the community gets better without open discussions like this. So by keeping it civil, I mean, everybody appreciates it, and that's how things get better. Second, I want to say Manhattan Beach has that small town feel that you can't find anywhere else in Los Angeles. Point and simple. Everybody knows that. Everybody who comes and visits knows that. And so by just increasing traffic flow, people who are just coming in and dining outside. It just kind of gets rid of that homey feel that you get in Manhattan Beach. I want to say that restaurants should be planning for the indoor-outdoor dining experience, such as Hook and Plow is a perfect example of that. 500 spots is a lot of additional people who are just going to be dining out. And there needs to be a serious look into the utilities, such as efficient parking, restrooms in the restaurants, kitchen space in the restaurants, dishwashing stations, trash containment, path of egress, etc. I also want to point out that the fire marshal should definitely be brought on board with this, just to see about the occupancy levels of the, I guess, just the restaurants and also the paths of egress to make sure that they're not being impeded on. I work in construction, and I know that $12 million is absolutely crazy. There's going to be things that are uncovered that we dig up from 40, 50 years ago, and it's just going to cause a lot more headache than anything else. There was no mention of the schedule, by the way. Construction schedules go on for very long, so hey, if this could be done in a week, you know, there's one story, but this is years and years. I also want to say that if 1% of the tax dollars gets allocated to it, 1% of 9.5, just rounding up to 0.1%, say 4 occupants per day in each spot, $100,000 of revenue, 0.1%, $100 a day, $12 million divided by $100 per day of tax revenue. I mean, that's going to be out of my lifetime as far as when we'll see return on investment of any outdoor dining. Overall, I'm against it, but I appreciate everybody's open discussions about this and for hearing me out. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Nicholas.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mia, and I'm a pretty recent Manhattan Beach downtown resident. First of all, I've never thought that the sidewalks are too narrow to walk. I've walked with friends and never had a problem other than just getting around outdoor dining tables. And so I don't buy that this is a net positive for the public at all, especially considering it's $20 million that could be used for so many other beneficial projects. It's crazy. Second, I work for SpaceX and have very long hours at work, and this will absolutely affect my commute every day, especially with like the added construction that's going to go on for years. And I'm especially worried about Highland Avenue because that is like the most trafficked area on my way to work. And like, yeah, there is that lane of cars on the side, but like in the early morning, that lane or that area of cars becomes kind of an extra lane of traffic that like you won't be able to have if there's a sidewalk right there. And I also want to echo, like, I'm really concerned about like emergency vehicles not being able to get past because like there's a difference between a sidewalk being there. A car cannot pull over on top of a sidewalk, but if there's parking spots, there can be some parking spots that are not occupied at that time, and you can still pull over and the emergency vehicle can get through. There is a difference between those two things. Second of all, if I'm like stuck behind a bicycle, they can usually pull off into a parking spot so that a car can get around. If there's a sidewalk there, they can't pull off anywhere else. You're kind of stuck behind the bicycle, which is dangerous and not convenient for the cars either. And then also, I don't buy the extra parking at all, and I worry about like where my sister is going to park when she visits me for a week. Is she going to have to pay like the super expensive parking meters all week that she's visiting me? And yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? How about Zoom?
There's no request on Zoom.
Okay. So, did we want to take a break before we come back for discussion?
Yeah, close public comment.
Close
and
public
then-
comment.
Yeah, so I'm going to close public comment, and then we're just going to take about get back at 8:30? Yeah, get back at 8:30? All right, thanks for your patience. Thank you.
We're like,
Thank you for indulging us in a break. So we are at the point where council is going to have a discussion about item number 8, the outdoor dining, rough order of magnitude. So who would like to start off?
Oh, fine, I'll do it.
Well,
someone's going to do it. Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Discussion time, but there are directions that we're talking about going to as well. There are things just to put into record right now in terms of task force recommendations and some of the live outdoor entertainment, amplified music. I'm a no at this time. I think we didn't talk about that. I didn't get into that in terms of questions, but you know, who would have, is it permissible? Because right now we have very limited CUPs downtown that allow live entertainment or dancing or amplified music, things like that. And at this point, I think it's too early to say that. I don't think we want a bunch of outside decks with live entertainment on them. There's just because then we're talking about additional costs with having to have code enforcement folks out there on the weekends. It just, you know, that's not going to pay for itself, and it's just an added cost. You're talking about a whole lot of mischief that can happen and subjectivity with that. Right now, I would put that on the far back burner, not go forward with that at this time, not give that any approval. That goes to proper enforcement regulations. You know, there's a lot of things. It's a very dynamic issue, and I've got all the emails from everybody in favor. I get that. It's, you know, people love eating outside. I get that. I do too. There are ways to do it. There are restaurants that allow that for now because they built that into their private property, and this would be in addition to that. And we're really talking about changing the face of downtown, and change isn't always bad. I get that, but I think there's still a lot of unknowns. I'm going to say that I want to hear from my colleagues here. I'm not necessarily opposed to spending the extra money to get a more refined set of numbers here, because we need to make some final decisions with what those real numbers are. We've got the rough order of magnitude, but it's not enough to make final decisions on. I think that there's so much going on here. You know, we talk about the extended sidewalks, only in some areas, not in others. I think we have to be looking at all areas. Otherwise, we're looking at the haves and have-nots of downtown. We're looking at shabby one side, new on the next. I think we need to look at all that. And I also think we need to ask ourselves, okay, is just cement enough? Every other downtown that redoes themselves, you got Hermosa, they've got the perimeter pavers along with concrete to have an enhanced aesthetic. There's plenty of other places, downtown LA, others that have that. Do we want to do that? Because right now, what we're talking about is the concrete with a brush treatment. So not particularly exciting or aesthetically pleasing, but it gets the job done. Enforcement of issues, again, we're talking about making sure the whack-a-mole situation we had in the past with our dining decks over, you know, our people outside and say we don't have to deal with that anymore, but making sure that they stay within the envelope, making sure that those aren't overcrowded, that there's a maximum number of folks that can be on there at any given time. Maintenance issues on there, but, you know, participation very well could be limited. We don't know who's going to actually participate in this. You know, folks like El Sombrero, they dialed back their dining deck when they couldn't afford. Michael Greenberg stepped up. You know, God bless Michael Greenberg, but he can't step up for everybody all the time. He did for a period of time during COVID and kept El Sombrero's dining deck open, but are they going to go forward to it? We don't have any indication. You know, selling $10 burritos, you're not going to be able to afford it. And we need affordable places for people to go downtown to eat, not just the high end. We need to be able to serve all folks who come there. Erkley's, they already dialed back, and their owners indicated to me before that they are unlikely to participate in the future. Shellback, Manhattan Pizzeria, you know, can these people afford the market rate per square foot additional? And then, you know, in terms of the whole picture and the whole project, I think, you know, the issue of context, and that's the difference, right? Because we get all these emails, and it's great, but do folks know the context of everything here and what we have to deal with and the other projects that we're talking about? There's a whole set of folks who want a pool, and we've embarked on that and getting designs for that. We'll be talking about that, but that's anywhere from 30, 35, $40 million. This we're talking about anywhere from 7.5 to 12.5 to even 20 million or plus at the end of the day if we do all the sidewalks. And how is that phased in? This is hugely impactful, folks. I was here for the redo of downtown when we put the tiles in. Not I'm not responsible for that. But other people did, and it was hugely disruptive to the businesses. Some businesses went out because of the disruption, the lack of access to them. It throws parking in disarray. You dig up, you've got ramps to try and access the businesses. It's dirty, it's crowded, you've got the construction crews there. It is very impactful. So phasing is going to be very important. But as I said, the pool, parking lot 3, that's, you know, in need of replacement, actually. We've done Band-Aids for years. That's on the docket to replace. The Senior Scout House, we've got $200 million in CUP projects. How this fits in, that's where I go to. This idea of participation, cost participation from the businesses themselves. You know, we're not going to get cost recovery if we rely on sales tax or anything else for years down the road. The upfront money, paying for that deck right in front of their businesses, just like the encroachments on the walk streets, that makes sense to me. Paying for the railings, things like that. To me, the benefit gets the burden. We take care of the public aesthetic, the public widening of the sidewalks, but those spaces that are going to be used by the restaurants, they should really consider stepping up and saying, okay, we'll pay for that to help kickstart these changes, because if we don't have a Kickstarter here, you're competing with all these other projects, and there are just as concerned and enthusiastic people for the pool, maybe not as much for parking lot 3, but that's a necessity, but the Senior Scout House is a lot of other things. So there's a lot of moving parts here, and if this seems like we're inching forward or it's very incremental, it's because it's true. We are. We have to be judicious. We have to be smart about it. We have to take into all considerations, including the concerns of the residents downtown. So this isn't done. There's no final decision. This isn't a final decision tonight either, in any way, shape, or form. It might come back to what Mr. Jenkins said earlier. It's like, you know what? If we just got a couple people who want to participate, then maybe we give that parking out, 1 or 2 spots here or there, let them have a deck, and call it a day. Because I'm really going to be interested to see, at the end of the day, how many restaurants, and it's going to be the haves versus the ones charging the $80 pastas versus the $10 burrito. There's going to be a difference there. And equity, you know, is a term that is misaligned a lot, but in support of our downtown businesses, in support of all restaurants, this is what I've talked about before. It's like, well, how can we make it work for everybody? It can't just work for some and not others. I know it's a choice at the end of the day, but these are all the moving parts that I see going into this. There's a lot going on. No final decisions, but I'm fine with spending the money to get better numbers so we can move forward. And that's where I'm right now, but I'm interested to hear what my colleagues have to say. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Haworth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councilmember Napolitano, for going first. Thank you to all the residents who have let us know their opinions, both for and against. And, you know, I should start by saying I love outdoor dining. I loved it during COVID. I love it when I travel. I love it now. And I don't think it has to be just an intensification of use. I think it can be charming and wonderful. So, but as my colleague mentioned, we have to make decisions within context and within, you know, there's so many other things to consider, or so many things to consider. You know, you mentioned parking garage 3, and when all of this is being discussed, I think, it's kind of brilliant. I mean, I think our staff has done a brilliant job, and the task force, who, has been through months and months and months of staff reports and research, and really, really tried to, come to something that works. But when you talk about, okay, we haven't taken away much parking, maybe there's 4 spots from the north end, which is actually pretty heavy on them. But if you're adding 500 seats to your dining plan, where are those people going to park? And so, let's not forget parking lot 3, which is probably going to be $30 million too. And as Council Member Napolitano said, we also are talking about a pool. I'm just concerned that with the amount of money, however, I also know the restaurants, a lot of the restaurant owners really want this. And so I would say that I also would want to get a better cost estimate by item C, which is an amendment to the professional services agreement for civil engineering, but also to start working out with, some preliminary discussions with the restaurant owners to find out how much they're willing to pay for, or how they're willing to pay for it. Because again, we could get a revised scope and a revised estimates that says, okay, it's 10 million. We think it's 10 million for X, Y, and Z, but we still don't know what are people willing, what are owners willing to pay for. I agree with everything you said, Steve. Except for, and I don't think I'll get support for it, I don't mind the music. Sorry, I'm not going to look over there. I think that, there is a real place in downtown for music, whether it's the farmer's market, maybe, that whole Metlocks area. I think that there is, acoustic music. I think there's a way to do it, but we can talk about it later. I get that. I want to also point out that we do have some CIP projects coming to improve Metlocks itself, which is a good thing because that is really shabby. And, here we are talking about spending all this money, to maybe widen sidewalks, and we need to spend money on Metlocks, and we need to spend money on the stairwell and everything like that. So I don't see how we can spend this much money now. Not to mention the small businesses that would be incredibly negatively impacted by the long-term projects of widening the sidewalks. Again, that doesn't mean it can't be done, but if we don't mitigate this now, if we don't put in our plans ways to help them, whether it's financial incentives, whether it's signage, whether it's, we're going to further lose our retail, and I'd hate to see that happen to some of our long-term businesses. So I would support, appropriating $91,000 for MIG to do some more civil engineering. And I would like to make it happen, but we have a lot of considerations here.
Okay. Great. Councilmember Montgomery.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll start by saying I appreciate Senior Planner Yoon and Jeff, civil engineer, telling us to get in the way, letting us know what actually is out there best you could as of today. I think the additional shock of the extra $8 million, we need to know that. That's important. We all hear the same thing at the same time. As you all know, it's very rare for government projects to end on time and end under budget. Whether it's local, whether it's state, anybody, the county, they rarely end at the numbers you think they are, or will be. So going in, I think you added 20%, 30% of your numbers to cover what might happen as contingency, but even then we don't know. We are taking the cautious approach, as Steve mentioned, because if we don't, then our number may be a lot bigger than 12 million, or 15 million, or 20 million. We don't know yet. So we're trying to guess in a vacuum here where we're going to end up, numbers-wise, and we can't do that. Not with Director Shrillian reminding us every month that we outside challenges, not just the pool issue, where it will be, what will happen with the community center, what will happen with our old scout house going forward, what that will be. $300K we're paying right now for our streetlight landscaping fund, we're eating that cost, folks. out of our own pocket. And the Sacramento also could change the rules on what we just passed on our ballot initiative. They go back and wipe that out. Guess what? We're paying all that money back again internally. For you spending the money, you need to see what we have. I mean, Steve and Bruce and I, we were all here, and I was the lucky guy to be mayor during the Great Recession. I know what it was like to not have any money coming in. And then again, during COVID, we saw what would happen with no money coming in. What do you do? And now you're worried about, do we spend it all? We're going to assume we're going to have rainy days or we're going to have sunny days the rest of the next 20 years to pay this off. So just because we're making the step to look at the next review does not mean we're approving it. It means you're looking at all the variables first. Before you say yes, you have to know what it will cost us. I've heard some good arguments about why we shouldn't do anything at all. Let's say the way it is. Don't change a thing. Well, you've heard the vast majority don't want to leave it the way it is, whether it's just widening the sidewalks and stopping or fixing infrastructure that hasn't been touched in 50 years. We saw what happens, folks, you don't touch in 50 years. A lot more cave-ins, a lot more problems if we didn't do due diligence and fix it. And I, for one, and they'll laugh at this, but I used to give the prior councils a hard time for blowing money on studies. It never went anywhere. But the same token, how would I know what the number is till I actually find out what it is? So that's a final choice for us. Do you want to have this going forward, or you don't want to have it going forward? And I'm with Steve. I think that the restaurants, those maybe 10 of them in my head, Steve, that may pay for this, they got to be partnership with us. If they want to have this as an option for themselves, and remember, not all these seats are going to be used by restaurant dining. If I only serve lunch and dinner, I don't serve breakfast. Anyone in the public can use those seats. Does not mean they're reserved for dining. Anyone can use them. Go on the beach that day. It's open for everyone. The Coastal Commission is watching every step we're doing. I think Jay said it right. We're the first group to lead this way forward. Other cities are going to follow us, see how we're going to do it, and how we do it the right way. And we come back and step, and we won't do it because it's too expensive. They'll see why it's too expensive for us. With so many of the challenges that we have, we can't make decisions until we exactly know what it will cost. The time frame, I think, was 2 years, if I remember correctly, construction. Maybe Director Lee will confirm that. A 2-year time frame for construction, we don't know. I can't imagine what downtown would look like in 2 years of construction. Not just getting out to get to Highland and going north. And my other concern, you heard Peter Kim from Sloopy's talking about what Highland would be like if you squeeze Highland. As you know, we all hate road diets here. From day one, we didn't like road diets. When it happened to us getting out on Vista Del Mar, we threw rocks, bricks at the people that were promoting road diets. To do it to ourselves is wrong. So I need to look at other options on the north end. I'm not sold on the north end yet at all. I'm more favorable to the downtown area only, and that will happen. But let's see what numbers come through. Then I'll decide then. Because right now, I'm not in favor of spending $20 million to move it forward unless we have a partnership with everybody else going forward. If we find out only 5 restaurants are going to do it, you're going to sit back and go, was it worth this? For $12 million to get 5 restaurants are going to use it? Or did we just go back to the idea of widening the sidewalks and see what happens? So that's what I'm holding for now. I do support Mayor Pro Tem's idea of letting us go the next step and have the contractors bring us back more numbers and details so we can make a better informed decision. Thank you, Your Honor.
Great. Councilmember Lesser.
I'm leaning towards the emerging consensus here, but I have some questions. First and foremost, I want to thank everyone who's taken their time to be here, who's taken their time to write to us. Appreciated that input. We're here because of 2 primary issues. The first is whether or not we should endorse what the Outdoor Dining Task Force has recommended, which is more outdoor entertainment and amplified sound, and whether we should go forward with this agreement, this engagement with an outside contractor to refine what the costs actually are. Because again, we're using numbers here that we had asked our city staff to come up with as a rough order of magnitude, but the purpose of this engagement of this prospective engagement of this firm is to refine these numbers, to come up with actual costs so we know what we're really talking about. With regard to outdoor entertainment and outdoor amplified sound, I'm with my colleagues. I think it's too early. We need to come up with a broader concept of what our downtown is going to be, what our vision is, and moreover, want to build trust, continue the trust with our downtown residents, that this is not going to be our first step towards whatever this future vision might entail. We have to first come up with what is our plan going forward. I am in favor of moving forward with this firm, but for the fact that we have all raised questions tonight asking very specific practical issues about the functionality of the preferred program vision. I'm concerned about that, and that's an open question for me, which I want to talk about a little bit further as to what comes next if we're in favor of engaging MIG to flesh out these issues. And I frankly welcome council deliberations and maybe confirming with staff on how we go from here if we are concerned about the width of the roadway on Highland in North Manhattan Beach. Is this something which our outside engineering firm can really flesh out for us, or is this a policy decision which we need perhaps more input on before we hand this over to the firm? Downtown, I am concerned that there are going to be winners and losers, and I want to better understand how we might engage the property owners who will benefit from this pertinent extension into the public right-of-way, which would benefit their property, not just for the current users, but for the users down the road. So I think we have to better understand what options we would have to share the cost. So why don't I stop there and see if anybody has some more ideas on those open questions.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to pitch in here. First of all, the live entertainment, I don't think there's a place for it. I've been downtown 10, 11 o'clock at night. It's roiling. I don't think you need, if we have extra, and that's being contained by a building, by the restaurant. And this will be out and in the air, and we don't allow it on any rooftop type of situation, and I just don't think we should have it on the on any open outdoor dining. There's just so many unknowns in this, and I gotta kind of admit, a lot of hard work went into this. I mean, the task force ran meetings like this with public comment. So if you felt like you wanted to have your voice, you can go there and participate and have a public comment. You've got the email addresses of all the participants. You can go ahead and express yourselves that way. I think, well, where I'm disappointed is where are the restaurants at this meeting? Where are the restaurants when they met with staff? That's why I asked those questions. I have a list here of 10 downtown businesses, of which when you count multiple restaurant owners like David Slay and Mike Sims and David, and then let me see, so they're representing multiple restaurants. We got 11 restaurants. Okay, I counted, if I take away the north, I had a list here of all the restaurants. I think there was 26 in downtown and the rest were on the north end. No, 26, 26 and 8, so 34 total. Am I counting? No, that's not counting the north. So 34 restaurants. I mean, we're talking about a pretty deep, far-reaching relationship we're going to have them to create this kind of havoc downtown, to essentially rebuild Manhattan Beach. And we need to get their input. We need to get their numbers. I mean, you heard me talk about the sales tax. I don't know what they're going to hide. I don't know what, you can get the sales tax numbers to see if they're hyperinflating their business. But partner with them. NDAs, we can use NDAs, but let's get the numbers. How much do you basically get per seat? And then once you get that per seat, then we got to sort of get a really final, how many additional seats you're going to be getting. and then they can make a business decision. Then we can make a business decision about whether or not this makes sense to do it. I believe the burden should go to those who benefit. I asked about raising, meter fees, but why should we raise them in, non-downtown areas to pay for improvements that are going on downtown? There's a way that we can make that number. I mean, if you're talking about $1 million a year, I think there's a way to make that number. But I'm not sure. I mean, I would love to see some of the empty seats here with some of those restaurant owners, or at least conversing with us and say, yeah, we're behind that, or, we can only go up to this much, and then we don't see it feasible. They have challenges of their own. We got this, inflation, this nagging inflation that's hurting everything, and then the cost of labor is going up and things like that. So those challenges they have to kind of factor in. But I'm even thinking I don't want to proceed with the extra money because I felt we should have gotten some of that. I mean, we got the number, we kind of got a number tonight on the number of seats. It wasn't in the original staff report, but by questioning on how many extra seats we're going to be getting down there. Capacity for 610. There's 156 sidewalk dining seats now, sidewalk dining permitted seats. And then during the height of the decks, there was 980 seats. Oh, wow. So we're going a third less. But they have the numbers on how much they made on those extra seats that were outside. So we need more finite and accurate data before I think we should proceed. I don't know if we can get that for the $400,000 that we've already paid. But to go ahead and give more when the foundation of the numbers we have now, I can't trust. And without the feedback from the businesses and from the restaurants. Again, I'm optimistic. I think there's a way to get to that number, but we need that commitment before going forward. The construction phasing. I mean, there should be some sort of idea about what's going on here. We can talk to some contractors and the like, which I think we do, and we're sort of talking about it. I mean, how long will this take? If it takes 2 years and then it ends up being 4, that's going to be a disaster to so many businesses. Does it make sense to do one part of it first, probably not to completion, but just something, how to optimize the construction. Those are really big decisions to make. And I really don't get, I don't get a sense here from the information that we have of what that looks like. Got a lot of information, which is great. We have a lot more than we had before. And I really want to thank the task force. It's not easy. They're there. They got to do their work. I always encourage participation. You hear us all the time asking for participation. So I'm just going to go ahead and leave it at that right now. And Mayor Pro Tem Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to clarify. I have a few other comments or questions, but you said where's the feedback from the businesses? Mm-hmm. Did you mean about how much they would be willing to contribute or whether they want this?
Given what information we have and knowing that we've got a bond to pay at $1 million, I also did some quick, I got a list of all the restaurants.
Got it. I just didn't understand because I was going to say they have given feedback through the task force that they want this. I get what you're saying. Right. I totally get what you're asking.
How many would actually pay?
Right. Because I mean, I wouldn't want the people out who are watching to not think that the restaurant owners don't want outdoor dining. They absolutely do. Yeah. It's how much are they, are they willing to participate? Right. I also want to clarify, earlier I wasn't, I don't think, so clear when I was talking about Metlocks, and why did I bring up Metlocks and all of this? because we are budgeting to make improvements at Metlocks, and Metlocks is not nearly as old as the beautiful blue-gray tiles that have been mentioned. And ever since I was first on council in 2011, we were talking about, oh, the downtown streetscape really needs improvement. The downtown streetscape, we've got to, and we really haven't done much, you know, to your point, Steve, about how pretty, you know, Hermosa looks, right? So the bringing up Metlocks was, we are going to have to spend money there. And tonight we're talking about this extra $8 million, you know, to make surfaces consistent, even those surfaces or sidewalks that aren't being widened. So that would be like an $8 million, you know, estimate. We're going to have to spend that kind of money at some point soon anyway. You know, our downtown needs to be beautiful. We have, you know, really nice restaurants. We have, you know, to buy into a house here in Manhattan Beach starts at $4 million. You know, we need to keep ourselves spiffy. And, you know, we're going to have to spend money on streetscapes and designscapes. We're going to have to make improvements, not just in downtown. So think about that. The other thought I had is, you know, we talk about, and it's really just a concept at this point. We haven't even had the community meeting on parking lot 3, right? There's a planned meeting on that. Well, you know, maybe there's some sort of putting parking lot 3 together with this project, right? In terms of funding it, or, you know, finding resources for it, or bonding it, because there's some synergy there. Just an idea. I mean, we're not making this decision tonight, but I want us to think about it, because that serves the downtown area, right? And so there could be real synergy there. I do think we should spend the money to keep, you know, getting a, you know, sharpening the pencil, if you will. It's an expensive pencil sharpener, but I think we should do it. I think we should, I would like to ask the civil engineer firm, or however you want to call it, to really carve out, say, like the retaining walls, so it's clear. If you are Mangiamo's and you want to put in that retaining wall, it would cost X amount of money. So maybe we're taking care of the sidewalks and we're doing this and that. But if you're a restaurant and you want to do a deck, this is how much it's going to cost you for that. I think we should kind of assume that, right? To Steve's point, like, we didn't pay for Petros railing. We didn't pay for Le Pan Quotidien and Nick's stuff. And so...
We didn't pay for the dining decks.
Or the dining decks, or my patio. But I live on a walk street this way. But so I think it would be, you know, that way we can actually see, so then those restaurants get a chance to see, oh, it's going to cost that much? No, I'm not interested. Or, of course I'm interested in doing that, right? That's another way of asking them to participate without, you know. So consider that we're going to need to spend money on streetscape improvements regardless, whether we do widen sidewalks and do a downtown dining program or not. Consider that. Consider that we're going to have this parking garage that if people want to do, we're going to think about that. Consider bundling some of this. Consider carving out the retaining walls, and I kind of feel like taking North Manhattan out of it. I think it's just a couple of restaurants, and there's so many small businesses up there, and it is if Highland, if it's true that that's 40 feet wide and the other streets are 60 feet wide, that does not compute. So I say, I mean, maybe we get the civil engineering costs just so we know, but that's where I'm kind of headed right now.
Okay. Councilmember Montgomery.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think someone asked a question if we had all this that we see is all in favor of downtown dining. No. Take out the non-residents. Residents spend money here too. Non-residents spend money here. Visitors. All of this is pro. A lot of them are anti. And they don't show up here tonight. They use email. Some actually call me, believe it or not. Some actually use text and say we're against it. Here's the reason why. I can't show up at meeting tonight, but I'm a no. This is why I'm a no. And one of them really struck me is She had one comment. Richard, do you remember 2020? And I go, yes, I remember 2020. Very well. She goes, you know what? This is the largest city expenditure, the $18, $20 million she's talking about, the city will ever have with nothing to show for it except maybe sidewalks. It's not a water reservoir, not a police station, fire station, new city hall. It's just paving, concrete. Do you want to spend $20 million on a bunch of concrete? Question. So the reason why, again, we're moving so slow to Councilor Lester's comments, there's a lot of people here that don't want to do anything at all. Others that are okay with widening the streets, the sidewalks, but not the expense on the north end. I mean, I actually like El Sombrero.
Yeah.
Used to go there, and Sloopy's, and maybe Pizzeria by the Slice. I don't want to lose them on 2 years of construction. We saw what happened when people couldn't survive COVID. They barely hung on, and that was 1 year. 1 year, a little over a year, and they almost went out of business. How do you survive as a local business if you can't even get to your place, customers, for 2 years? Can you imagine? So those people that are emailing in that are the nose, understand we're not making a decision except to whether to go the next step and have someone study it, and then we can make a real decision. But to make a decision in the dark doesn't do anybody a service. We should wait and see what it is, because I don't know what the answer is. All we know is time frame, and maybe $7.5 to $12 million, $12.5 million. That's a big, huge difference between $7.5 and $12.5 million. And I appreciate staff's work on it, because you gave us the right roadmap. Now the next step is, can we refine it even more and get us down to that final edge so we can decide? And then, is the impact of 2 years really a time frame that we can live with? Mm-hmm. And do you want to include the north end, yes or no? Because after you start whittling out things, all of a sudden your numbers start changing. So I'll stop there, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Lesser?
I have a question for staff, and maybe I go through the city manager. And that is, given the concerns that all of us are expressing about the project and proposed revisions, is this still in a position to be handed off to our outside consultant, MIG? Have we not raised some fundamental questions about what the scope of work would be? I'm just looking at the scope of work, Exhibit A. It's to assist the city in developing preliminary plans for the long-term outdoor dining program in addition to the original work scope, which at its core, as described in the staff report, is this program vision that the task force has developed. But you're hearing lots of reservations and concerns about it. Would we not need to refine those before we really can hand this over to the outside consultant?
Hearing all the different perspectives from City Council, I would still recommend moving forward with the analysis, and that way you'll have more information to make definitive decisions based on.
Your Honor, could I follow that up with a question?
Yes.
Any idea of time frame for they can bring it? If they say, we say yes tonight, how long would it be before the company comes back and says?
16 weeks.
From today?
Correct.
16 weeks.
16
1/6.
Correct.
Thank you.
4 months.
And that's mostly because the civil engineered plans have to be prepared.
I'm trying to flesh out some of the practical issues that my colleagues have raised, including whether or not we include North Manhattan Beach. I mean, obviously, the scope of work could still include it, and we could always decide to exclude it later. But nonetheless, that's cost in the outset. You've heard concerns about the stepped decks, the built-up decks, however they're referred to, whether they should be included or not. Obviously, we can remove them later. Fundamental questions, though, on a project that would only impact the north side of Manhattan Beach Boulevard on certain blocks versus the south. Any further comments that are really policy judgments for us?
Well, about the raised decks, I think it would be helpful to have a general understanding of the cost so we can engage in those discussions with those particular establishments, and then we would have that feedback available for the council. Are they interested in taking that cost on in addition to the per square foot fee in the future? And then we'll gain a general sense of how much is it going to cost the city versus the establishment. And in terms of North End, I think we can take a look at that chart to understand, because we did segment the cost out for the city council in different sections. So we can take a look and have a general estimate of how much we might be saving if we were to take North End out. And I can reconnect with the team to see what that number was for North End specifically. But if the council would like to take North End out before we move forward with the professional services and the civil engineer plans, that's absolutely fine. But if the staff can help me out and tell me how much the North End segment was.
In here.
A little bit over $1 million.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, it's in that
It's
spreadsheet.
in here, yeah, it's in the spreadsheet.
Okay, and if you can just stay there, Director Mirzacanian. I noticed that some of the newer restaurants, like Hook and Plow, for example, I mean, granted, they had a lot of the structure there, but it was basically the street side of the restaurant is open.
Correct.
I mean, I've heard, I can't remember where I heard, but where that studio is now, or the studio that's now closed, they're thinking of developing a restaurant there, and it's going to have an open element, and also dining on the roof. too?
Potentially, they may have.
I mean, but still, so the desirability of outdoor dining is being presented now in the construction of these kind of sites. I'm just thinking that, as we're going to be doing some work at Metlocks, as these buildings get retrofitted and, brought into, the other one, would the other one be for the Zislis group where Bruco is? Is that going to have some open air element to it? I believe
They may
it
be
is.
considering an open air element as well.
And then you already have it at Rock and Fish. Oh, shoot, too many lists. Sorry. But Esperanza to some degree has that, right? And El Sombrero has an outdoor deck. And Slay, we know, has those open areas. Tacolicious has an open air feeling. And Simsey's and Hennessy's. The Kettle, has that open side on Manhattan Beach Boulevard. And Rock and Fish, I think I mentioned that earlier. But wouldn't we see like an evolution of this happening again and again, to where the need of outdoor dining or the desire of outdoor dining is being met organically, right? The building owner.
Question is, do you see that?
I see it.
Because you're the director. I mean, you see it, right?
Yeah.
And the answer is it depends.
Yeah. So, and those, and they may not want to participate in this because they've already made that investment. Okay. So, yes, I see it. That's what I see.
I know. It's a rhetorical question.
And it occurred to me as I walked around, I kind of looked at them and, Mr. Zislis took me through, the plan, to Ruco and, what the plans were there. He said, everybody wants open. We want this open. There's just another sort of avenue to explore, I guess. But I'd be inclined to spend the money if we, I think, develop really specific data points that we want so that we can make a really good and informed decision. I'm going to go ahead and leave it at that. And
Cut out the North End.
Councilmember Napolitano.
Thank you, Your Honor. I've made a motion. I'm going to move to adopt Resolution 24-0038, approving Amendment Number 1 to the PSA with MIG in the amount of $91,726.33 to assist the city in developing a preliminary plan for the preferred program vision. I'm doing this because I don't think we can answer all the questions we've had until we get that information. We need that information. The restaurants need that information because I want to hear as well, Your Honor, from the restaurants as to who is really going to go forward. And if it's 5 or 6, no, it's not worth it to go beyond that. I'm going to say that right now. So we're going to really get the information to have people put money where their mouth is and say, okay, are you going to go for this? But we can't do that until we tell them what it's going to cost them. And we need this information to tell them what it's going to cost them. And I think it's premature at this point to kick the North End out unilaterally. They're not here to say, whoa, wait a minute. We were under the impression that, this was going to be studied like the rest of everything. And had we known that it was even a possibility that we'd be taken off, we'd be down here saying too, it might not make sense in the end. None of this might make sense in the end. That's what we all said in having reservations. that with everything that's going on, all the moving parts, it might not make sense at the end of the day. But to make sure about that, because this is important to a lot of folks out there, both pro and con, we need accurate numbers and accurate information to go off of. So that's why I support and I'm making this motion to spend that money, which I normally wouldn't do. But then I also, right? You know, staff knows. And then as far as item B, provide direction related to the task force recommendations. No, take live outdoor entertainment, amplified music out for now. We don't need to consider that now. And because of that, we don't need to consider code enforcement mechanism for outdoor dining permits either. That's my motion, Your Honor.
Are they separate? Can I clarify? So the outdoor, the code enforcement does not relate to the amplified music?
Doesn't matter. I'm taking out right now. We don't need to talk about it. We need to spend the money to get the numbers
gotcha.
to be able to
I
make
just wanted
sense.
to-
There's no need to go for it.
Got
right?
it.
It's
I seconded.
irrelevant digression.
I just have one more question. Is the original $400,000, are they considered complete?
No, we're still utilizing those funds. We are still utilizing those funds.
Okay. To what degree? Do we know?
All of the work that the consultant is doing for us, has done for us up until this point, and continues to do for us. That includes the financial analysis that that EPS is doing for us right now with the sales tax data.
My colleagues are trying to kill my 10 p.m. prediction. Call for the
We
question,
are.
Your Honor.
Yeah.
We might have a pool going on.
Okay, so we have a motion to accept from Councilmember Steve Napolitano and seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Amy Howard. Vote.
Motion passes 5-0.
Your Honor, I have one quick follow-up question of the director without disrupting the 10 o'clock end time.
Go for it.
What is the role of the task force going forward at present, as staff's understanding?
We are still making regulatory decisions, some of which we've presented to you today, but not all of them have been addressed with the task force yet. We are working through the second floor outdoor dining guidelines, the redevelopment of those essentially. Right now we have some guidelines that stemmed from the downtown specific plan process that staff has been utilizing. We were asked by the council to revisit those. We had already planned on revisiting those as a part of this process. We're working on those now. We're working on trash regulations, vehicle loading regulations.
It'll work on.
Design things, heaters, awnings, things like that could be associated. And of course the regulatory part of it too, the code enforcement actions, et cetera.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Mayor.
Why do you guys hate music?
Okay, thank you. On to item number 9. Request from Sandpipers for dedicated use of a room at a discounted rate in exchange for a $50,000 donation.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. Mark Lehman, your Parks and Recreation Director. Not sure if it's over or under, so I will make this brief. At the March 19th City Council meeting, you directed us to bring this item for your consideration. And the Sandpipers propose a $50,000 contribution to the Friends of the Senior and Scout Community Center. This $50,000 contribution will be used for funds for the Friends' contractual obligations, which include paying the civil and structural engineers, lighting consultants, and interior designers. This contribution would enable the Sandpipers to name the second floor artist makerspace, have a 50% reduction to the rental rate for a 10-year term, provide a guaranteed 3-hour weeknight evening reservation 6 times per year during the months of September, October, February, March, April, and May. And this equates to $9,450 over 10 years. And we found out after the staff report launched, they'd also like to include the kitchen. So that is an additional $10 per hour. So that equates to $11,250 over 10 years. There have been similar contribution agreements made by youth sports organizations for turf replacement projects in Manhattan Village and Marine Avenue soccer fields to offset capital costs. This contribution model changed with the most recent Marine Avenue turf replacement project, in which City Council elected to fund the project through capital improvement project funds as well as grant funds, instead of accepting contributions from the user groups for dedicated field time. The Friends understand that the contribution model has changed, but believe that this partnership is unique because there are a number of additional considerations. These considerations include the requested time would be utilized of off-peak hours of Scout scheduled time identified in the MOU. The city entered into a contribution agreement and use agreement with Beach Cities Health District, providing 92 hours for older adult programming, events, and support groups services in exchange for a $150,000 contribution, although these would be open to the general public. The Friends have an existing partnership with the Sandpipers, collaborating on projects and would already be sharing the space for shared programming. All other community-based nonprofits in Manhattan Beach were given the opportunity to participate in the project, but only Sandpipers expressed interest. And finally, the Boy Scouts Troop 849 and Manhattan Beach Girl Scouts are in support of this agreement. So with that overview, that concludes my presentation. Staff recommends the City Council discuss and provide direction on this item. I'm available for questions as well as the Sandpipers and Friend representatives.
Great. Thank you, Director Lehman. Councilmember Napolitano.
Thank you, Your Honor. I see Councilmember Montgomery has made a motion, so my first question is, what's that motion? Since I already seconded it.
To approve the request for to request for Sandpipers dedicated use of a room at discounted rate at the Senior and Scout House Community Center for 10 years.
Just a question.
That's my motion.
That's the motion. Julie, is this the last carve-out we're going to hear about? Yes. All right. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. Any other questions? Councilmember Lesser?
I want to get it in the record. Director Lehman, you and I had an exchange with regard to the value of having this money now at this stage of the project. Obviously, it's value for the Friends in doing some of the preliminary work to get this project going. But can you articulate that, or should I really ask the Friends?
I know the Friends can provide a greater level of detail, but it really is to pay for the design phase, which they are obligated to do.
They're obligated to do it, and thus this is something that's critical for the project to move forward as a whole. Okay, helpful. Thank you.
Okay, great. Joe Franklin. Oh, yeah. So I'd like to just ask a question. So when we relate it to the soccer field, those soccer teams that are actually now going to be using the field, they're charging, it's a money-making enterprise for them, right? Because they're charging their players. So the soccer teams pay for the use of the field, and then they're charging their players that come in. So it's like a business.
With the new model?
Yeah.
Or yes, with the exception of AYSO it's a per player fee for the community-based organizations, but for the adult groups, they're paying $180 an hour for resident or $200 an hour for non-residents.
Okay, great. Gotcha. No more questions. Are there any more questions?
I'm waiting for public comments.
Okay, so I'll open up
the comments afterwards.
I'll open up public comments to those in the audience.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. My name is Beth Gessner. I'm a 40-year resident plus of Manhattan Beach and the Vice Chair and Treasurer of Friends of Senior and Scout Community Center. As you all know, we have, Friends has contributed nearly $2.3 million to the city for the construction of the new community center. But what you may not know is that we have been funding the entire design process from the beginning, including the city's fees and permits, or fees for the permits. Developing the plans is not part of the construction budget. So in order to provide the city with completed construction-ready plans in the coming months, it will cost us approximately $360,000. We have contracted with 18 separate entities, including the architect, a surveyor, civil engineer, structural engineer, mechanical, electrical, plumbing engineers, the lighting consultant, the fire sprinkler system consultant, interior designers, the list goes on. To date, we have expended $215,000 towards the plans and permits. leaving us a balance of $145,000. This $50,000 contribution from Sandpipers will go a long way to meeting those remaining obligations. So Sandpipers, as you know, is an outstanding organization that does so much good for our community and the surrounding areas. They are asking very little in exchange for their gift. They would just like an affordable place to call home. So please support this agreement with the Sandpipers, and thank you so much for your contribution. 7 seconds.
Thank you, Beth. Right on time. Look at that.
We're approving it.
It was very hard not to come up as a restaurant owner. Thank you, Honorable Mayor and City Council. I'm Joanne Hunter, and I've lived in our wonderful city for 30 years. I'm proud to be a significant donor to the new community center, and I'm also proud to be a past president of Sandpipers. Sandpipers, with the membership of 750, is an organization started during the Depression with the goal of helping those less fortunate. These families are referred to us by local social service, churches, synagogues, school nurses, and our 2 local hospitals. One of our strongest programs is providing college scholarships for high school seniors. Our annual budget for this program alone is $310,000. Our scholarship program is the oldest and largest in the South Bay, and also very unique, as we'll follow the recipients for all 4 years. We have a strong relationship with high school counselors across the South Bay who refer these students who have financial needs, refer them to us. What brought me here today are 2 things. One, Sandpipers cannot afford to pay for rental space at other facilities without having to tighten our belts and reduce the size of our scholarship expenditure. Secondly, Sandpipers has had a buildings fund for the last 20 years, which we have never had the opportunity to dip into it. The fund cannot help us with scholarship because the donors to this fund have put limitations on its use. So we feel the new community center is the perfect fit to support turning over the fund's total of $50,000. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Thank you.
Good evening. I apologize if I repeat some of the information, but good evening, Mayor and esteemed council members. I extend my gratitude for the opportunity to address you tonight. My name is Elora Parikh, and I'm a representative of Sandpipers, an organization very close to my heart. I've been proudly serving within its ranks for the last 2 decades, and that includes a term as president in 2018. At Sandpipers, we uphold a proud tradition of being entirely volunteer-driven, dedicated to raising funds to support those in the community who need a helping hand to regain their footing. And within the membership, exceeding 750 individuals, of which 175 are currently active, and proudly operate without any paid staff. Every dollar we raise circulates directly back into our community. Our members, predominantly residing in the South Bay area, not only champion our initiatives, but also invest significantly in the betterment of the communities they call home. Personally, I currently serve as a scholarship advisor tasked with guiding the students who have been awarded the scholarships and ensuring the equitable distribution of funds among the 54 students currently enrolled in our 4-year program. Our scholarship program functions as a gap scholarship, supporting students throughout their 4 years and striving to meet their unmet financial requirements, thereby reducing their debt upon graduation. While our commitment to distributing $310,000 among these deserving students is substantial, it unfortunately falls short for meeting their full financial needs. With escalating expenses in tuition, accommodation, and daily living expenses, many of our scholars still find themselves grappling with financial challenges, often resorting to loans to bridge the gap. Securing the community center's meeting space in advance would immensely benefit Sandpipers. The funds saved on rental expenses could could be redirected towards crucial programs like scholarship and significantly alleviate the financial burdens faced by our students. So once again, I appreciate your attention for our cause and your consideration of our request. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Public comment in chambers? How about online, Zoom?
There's no request on Zoom.
Okay, I'm going to close public comments. Mayor Pro Tem Haworth.
Thank you. Well, we've had a motion to accept by Councilmember Montgomery and a second by Councilmember Napolitano. And I didn't ask any questions in the beginning, so I just wanted to make a comment of gratitude. First to the Sandpipers. And Joanne, I really thought you were here as a business owner, so I was a little worried. Yeah, but you know, what y'all have done and continue to do is remarkable, and it's really a hallmark of this community, right? This public service, this public participation. And Beth and Julie and Michael and all the people who've been involved in the Senior Scout Community Center. Oh my goodness, talk about dedication and not giving up, right? It takes people like this to get something like this over the finish line. And so this is such a great partnership. How smart for both, it benefits the Sandpipers, it benefits your community, and ultimately benefits all of us. So I'm very grateful to all of you, so thank you.
Great. Councilmember Leslie?
I just want to thank the representatives of the Sandpipers for one, sitting through our last discussion topic, which was short and efficient and to the point. But more importantly, thank you for your dedication to this project. It's been a joy to watch as this project evolved over the last 15, 20 years when I first tagged along with some of the leaders of this project to begin with, particularly the Manhattan Beach property owners and Tim Lilligren and others who really led the charge for this idea. They had a basic concept of an intergenerational facility that could serve our community. And to watch how this building, this project has really blossomed by bringing in community organizations of different types like the Sandpipers has been really wonderful. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your commitment. And I will reiterate the answer that we just received to a question that was asked about the value of these funds. Why dedicate time later on when, in theory, that's lost revenue? It's because these funds are critical to get this project built. Thank you, and I'll be supporting the motion.
Councilmember Napolitano, can I have one word first? Ditto.
38.
What do you say?
And I'm going to say, I'm going to thank you by not making you listen to us anymore and call for the question. Thank you.
Amen. We have a motion.
That's right, Joanne.
We have a motion, everything.
We're waiting on
the vote.
Councilmember Napolitano to vote.
Done.
I'm going to make the
Motion
next one
passes 5-0.
There you go.
Good job, Joanne.
Thank you.
And now we love going to coffee with the mayor.
Yeah. Bring it on. Very cute.
Steve, I can't believe it.
Okay, so
Mr. Mayor, this is your item number 10.
Item number 10. Consideration of a resolution expressing support for actions to further strengthen local democracy, authority, and control as related to local zoning and housing issues. City Manager Mo, also known as, and also
George Gabriel.
George Gabriel.
George Gabriel, assistant to the city manager.
Oh, I was looking over there.
I'll keep this short and sweet.
Why would you do that?
Nobody else is.
This action comes before you because a similar action was taken by the city of Hermosa Beach. It's largely a ceremonial resolution to express support for actions to further strengthen local democracy, authority, and control as it relates to local zoning and housing issues. It's also consistent with our recently adopted and approved legislative platform document as well. And this item comes before you at the suggestion of a city council member, and therefore it's up for council consideration and adoption. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions?
No questions, Your Honor.
No questions? Move on to public comments. Any in the chambers? Public comments on this? On Zoom?
No requests.
Okay. We have a call for, so the motion was forwarded by myself, Mayor Franklin, and seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Amy Holworth. We have a
Call
vote?
for the question, yeah, absolutely. 4 scored.
There we go.
Oh,
Motion.
I didn't get a chance to vote.
It's something you
I
said.
went to, I went to push.
They checked you out of the meeting. You
Went
were
to
so
push.
eager
I'm
to-
not. My name's not even on there.
You did, you checked out the
Not even an
meeting.
abstention.
Checked out the
They
meeting.
wanted to get you out.
So what are you doing to me?
Taking longer, this is great.
Should we, motion fails?
My name's not even on there.
Says motion fails.
Okay, all right,
We doing it again?
we're trying.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you have it? Okay.
There we go.
There
Motion
we go.
passes 5-0.
Okay. Move on to council, city council requests and reports, AB 1234.
None for me, Your Honor.
Okay. Future agenda items? None? Nope. None?
None, okay,
Nice try.
another time.
Finally, just
You're
getting
welcome.
closer.
You're welcome.
It was-
Score.
It was about, the mural,
Oh,
yeah.
we'll talk later.
We'll talk later,
Yeah.
sorry.
City manager report?
Yes, I have one brief report tonight, and that is, as council's aware, earlier today I announced my retirement to the staff here in town, and I will have been with the city for 35 years come May, and it's been a great experience. I'm very grateful for everything the city has given me, and I love working here at the city, and I'm just, again, very thankful. My date will be sometime in August, likely beginning of August, but I remain available for the city council to help with the transition, and look forward to helping acclimate my successor. So thank you again for a great career here. I've appreciated every moment of it.
Of course, we'll allow time for council comments. Councilmember?
Thank you, and I'm going to save all the accolades for later. I'm not going to get into that now. I want to make very clear, though, that since we have had a couple of meetings, closed sessions, where it was review of city manager, that he was letting us know what his plans were. His plans are no reflection of anything on this council that pushed him out, asked him to leave, or gave him an option. We don't want him to, but we understand why he is, because he has spent his time, he's served his time, and and he's allowed to be released back into the wild at some point of his choosing. And this is entirely his choosing, and I want to make sure that anyone who's reporting on this understands this is the city manager's choice to do this, and it was with the support of council because we wish him the best. Again, accolades come later, but I just want to make sure that any reporting on this, there's no pushing out, there's no firing, there's no anything other than the best for Bruce Moe going forward. Thank you.
I really appreciate you saying that.
Councilmember Lesser?
I was going to begin the accolades, but I wanted to say something along the lines that Councilmember Napolitano just said by just simply saying thank you. Thank you, Bruce, for your 35 years of service to our community, to our city. And I haven't been around with the city as long as some of my colleagues. I've only been around for about 20 years.
Not leaving tonight, you realize that.
But this is a bittersweet moment. And I look forward to extending these comments later, but not tonight, but simply to say thank you.
Thank you. And I'd like to take the liberty of, you are known in the city, in the halls here, as a great poet. Okay, you're famous for that. So I wrote a little limerick for your news. There once was a man named Bruce Moe who decided it was now time to go. After 35 years, he'll ditch his ties for some beers. Now it's sandals and shorts. Yeah, bro. Thank you very much.
Very nice. Very much.
Thanks for all your service.
I'll save my comments for later because I'm too mad right now.
Ditto.
Okay.
No, I'm not mad.
City attorney report.
You going anywhere?
Oh, boy.
Unfortunately, no. But, Yeah, I'll have a lot to say about Bruce when the time comes, yes. No, we're going to miss Bruce, of course, and but I have no report tonight.
Okay. And informational items, no. And we are going to adjourn to a closed session on Tuesday, April 23rd, 2024 at 5 p.m. in City Council chambers. Thank you all.